going to open the meeting of the Board of Selectmen. It is 6:02, April 21st. If I can get a waiver
So
on the
moved.
reading. Okay, do I have a second?
Bateman seconds.
All in favor?
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman, aye.
And Nichols eye.
It is now 6:03 on Thursday, the 21st of April. I'm calling the Finance Committee meeting to order.
All right, first of all, I'd like to thank Gary and Carol and Nancy Macaruso for their very hard work in getting these articles together. It was a very confusing and difficult time to get this all set, but we have them in front of us. And I guess we will start with Article 1 to hear annual reports of town officers and committees. Do I have a motion to place?
Motion to place.
Do I have a second?
Whitman seconds.
Any discussion? And roll call.
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman, aye.
And Nichols eye. And Article 2, to see if the town will vote to appropriate or transfer from available funds, including line item transfers and/or free cash, a sum of money to Snow and Ice Supplies, account 001-423-5400 for fiscal year 2022, or take any action in relation thereto.
Motion to place.
Whitman seconds.
All right, discussion?
Do we know where this is
Right.
coming from?
It's coming from Joe. You talked to Joe about this, Gary?
I did talk to Joe,
Yes, Mr.
and here's
Booker.
Joe now. The amount for the transfer to cover the deficit is $248,626.37.
One more time, a little slow, big A,
Okay, I'm sorry.
248.
248,626.37.
Thank you.
You can come sit right here.
So, does anybody have any other
I don't
questions
bite.
regarding the deficit?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Are we gonna operate on these at the same time, or not? We're not gonna do that?
No, I think it'll be easier because we got so many people on Zoom, it's
Okay.
gonna take too long. Let's try to zoom through this and we can do this quickly. If anyone, but be part of the discussion. And if anybody on Zoom's got questions, ask them.
Okay.
Do we know where we're gonna pay for the snow and ice out of?
No.
I'm just asking.
No, I believe that's up to this group. I didn't make a recommendation on that.
All right, so we don't know, this isn't coming out of,
Out of opera?
No. This, mind if I, who's running the meeting?
Oh,
I
never
wanna-
mind, that was fuel. Forget it.
Go
That's all right.
ahead,
we-
just go ahead.
it's both committees, so
Yeah,
go ahead.
I just, protocol's important, I'm just trying to respect the process. So, at the time when we worked on the snow and ice deficit, the plan was to take what we could from remaining funds at DPW and the balance out of free cash. The only proposal that's ARPA-based that affects the operating budget, to my knowledge, put forth by the committee, was for fuel and energy costs. And I don't know if you've got to that yet.
No, this is only on Article 2. So,
If I'm-
go ahead, Lee.
I was just, I think, Karen, you probably have the free cash, is it total free cash going into annual is 241?
No.
No?
We used 125,016 to balance the budget, so therefore we have 116,208.69.
One's,
116,208.69.
So it's not coming out of free cash.
Not the whole thing, no.
Was there anything that could come out of excess DPW operating or no?
No, we won't know till the end of the year.
Yeah. And most likely not, right?
No, we're pretty thin.
Yeah.
Or there could be other accounts in other areas.
figured
So
as
you
much.
don't know where those are.
I don't.
No, right, that's what I'm saying, right.
Sometimes they've used unspent insurance money to shore that stuff up, but
Sure.
some of it, but
Right.
the DPW side of the house has been level funded for a few years now, so
Yep.
I don't see us having any wiggle room.
Okay.
So it leaves it kind of open. I guess we're going to have to pay it. I'm not sure where it's coming from.
I think, and I had asked at one of the FinCom meetings if it was possible to defer this to the fall And I think Karen reached out to Dan to get recommendation, guidance on that, just as, not necessarily an advocate for that, but as an option given, because snow and ice can be deficit spent, so if we get a lump sum of free cash in the fall, then can this deficit be covered in the fall essentially? And I think Karen,
Cannot, no.
Dan recommended strongly against it because it could hurt our use of free cash and whatnot. That was his recommendation, so I go lean his way.
But, gotta come up with a little bit of money here.
So, I mean, it says transfer from available funds, so I mean, it doesn't prohibit us from using ARPA or other funding avenues if we have to, correct?
Or stabilization.
Stabilization. not that we-
Stabilization would make a
take it
difference
out
because
of
we
that.
have to state that.
No. Right, transfer from available funds. That would-
Yeah, but stabilization's not
Not
available,
available.
it has to be said,
That's-
stabilization
Stabilization has to be
for,
specifically
for a
written.
vote.
Do we put that in to cover ourselves?
I was gonna say, do we add in including?
But then we're gonna need to know the numbers because people are gonna wanna know what's coming out of stabilization.
And that's a 2/3 vote.
I was
Yep,
gonna say, coming out of stabilization is 2/3.
yep. But that's gonna require, if we're gonna use that avenue, then we're gonna need to have kind of tied up numbers because that's gonna be the first thing that's gonna be asked, how much is coming?
But is there, I guess, I don't wanna speak for Carol, but I think my line of thinking was, is there an option to include wording in here if we need it? Because these have to be placed tomorrow, and if we need to have the option to use stabilization, is there a way to add that in? And then if we don't, if between now and the next, 2 weeks, we get more firm numbers in and we know we don't need to use stabilization, then we don't use stabilization? I don't know,
Right, we could go like free cash
including.
and/or stabilization.
From available funds, including,
Just leaves our options open before we
Yeah.
make recommendations.
Do you mind if I go ahead? You could refer it to the ARPA committee. You could leave it on the warrant as written, refer it to the ARPA committee, and if we make the recommendation, you can go ahead and fund a portion of it that way as well.
But you could add that in there, you could add stabilization, just,
That's what
when
we're
you make the
saying,
motion, you
just as
just
an
don't
option.
use it if you don't need it.
Right, that's what we said, leave that as one of the options.
Correct.
Funding avenues.
Does anyone know how much money's in the stabilization fund?
Yeah, we wrote it down a couple meetings ago. I forget though, was it a little over $1 million?
Yeah, I think it was like 1.2-ish,
Yeah.
somewhere around time,
Okay.
1 yeah.
1.2-ish.
Yep.
All right.
So, including line item transfers, free cash, and/or stabilization, is that fine?
yes. And then I've added underneath majority or, and/or 3, and/or 2/3 vote.
Yeah,
Depending on
for
which one we go.
stabilization, it has to be 2.
You're gonna have some elements that are, some issues
Is the
So
board-
with the way everything's been going up, and we're not budgeting accordingly, just be cautious, because this is gonna continue. This is just 1 year of several going forward that we're gonna have that same problem.
Can I ask, we have primaries in November, right? So we could add a ballot question if we wanted to? Or we could maybe,
down and, no, that don't work that way.
no, we can't do,
But that I don't know. I don't know if we can.
We've
add-
always had two separate. If anything comes to the town, it's always separate. Go in, come back out, go back in again.
You should just ask Anita just to make sure. I don't know.
I guess I'm wondering, it would be nominal if we're already, if they're set up,
Mhm.
if we needed to go to ballot question for something in November. Thank you.
You can just check it as an option.
Well, I can,
I missed the first part of the question. You said-
I'm wondering, to Karen's point, we may have to do something about asking the town to do
Some kind of an override.
Oh,
of
a
some
2.5
sort.
override,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if we do that, and we don't have time to do it now, obviously, we all know that, but if we, as we see everything play out in the next few months, we could use the fact that we have a primary election in November, all the precincts would be set up, and if we wanted to go for a 2.5 override, the cost would be normal, it might be a ballot.
Right, I think you can do it, but I
Cost,
think you just
but-
have to do a separate ballot.
Right.
But you can do a 2.5 over anytime you want. If you declare it, and
But
you're
you
gonna
have
have
to-
an
But you have to set
election.
up-
Right,
She's-
and-
you
but I'm
do all
saying
the
if we
steps,
tied
but-
it in, the
$6,000.
cost to the
So we wouldn't have to
town
set up
would
a
be
separate
not-
election,
correct,
right.
would be,
Right,
so,
but
yeah.
you can do it anytime you want.
Right,
For the
right. So it
nominal
would just
fee
be a
of
separate
$6,000.
ballot.
But
So
it's
it
a
would be-
process.
Right.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. So, is the board fine with the article as amended?
Yep.
Does the board wanna recommend pushing it to ARPA committee to consider or not? I just put up the ARPA thing again, just to get an ideas, dollar amounts and
Yeah.
everything. Cause like I said before, my concern is just that we spend ARPA here and there and everywhere for things that, this is not necessarily one-time this is stuff that we should need to get in the budget somehow.
Right.
But for right now, it's another leak to plug. But I feel like quickly ARPA is gonna be drained, plugging
Right.
all of these operating expense leaks and not any projects. And therefore, so I don't know if we wanna suggest it back to ARPA for consideration.
Meeting again.
When's the next meeting, sir? Did we let them know?
It's next Tuesday after the final meeting.
Next Tuesday?
Yep.
Okay. So then you guys will consider that and take a look at that. I mean, the ARPA committee is just to make recommendations, the board makes the final decisions
Correct.
anyway.
Right.
We can just, we don't need a recommendation, that's just the process we've been following, so we have the
Right.
ability to spend the money
Right.
regardless, so.
And I also know that the ARPA committee, I think, has a handle on other projects that they've been rumbling around with and everything, so they have,
Prioritizing
another,
so.
another set of eyes, kind of.
Yep.
The only thing I would ask is that the snow and ice budget is estimated each year, be removed. It is not estimated each year. We grossly underfund it every year. So don't put that in there because we don't estimate it. We put pretty much the same amount of money in it every year.
So how do you wanna reword that? I'm trying to make them on the fly, so we have this ready.
This is to pay for a snow and ice deficit as a result of not enough money being budgeted.
Well, do we just take out that last line, right?
There you go.
Right.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's the thing, I was like, just don't say it's
Right.
because it's estimated, because we fund the same
'Cause it-
amount.
yeah, it looks
I think
like-
we gave you, what, $500 more than last year, if that?
No,
Something.
it's, yeah,
So,
not for anything, it's not more plows per se or people, it's salt's up 27%,
Right.
fuel's up 40%.
Right.
These are costs, it's not like you can't get around them. So realistically, snow and ice is somewhere between 450 and $500,000 annually, and we're budgeting 230. It's not sustainable, that's all.
I know you also switched to brine this year, which was a cost savings on the salt side, for the use of salt, but then the cost of salt went sky high.
We had
so-
two things, salt went up, and we had more salt sand type events this year. Probably 10 more than a year ago, but you can't always predict the weather.
Right.
All right, and then we can define, when we make our, the recommendation.
Could we
Cars.
add in the description, because it's not just that we unanticipated the cost or the number of snowstorms, where it's also the cost of fuel increase. Am I correct with that? To get a full picture for this description?
Sounds like salt and fuel both
Salt,
went up.
yeah.
For an unanticipated increase in material costs, something like that.
Market costs, we use that a lot.
Materials and supplies.
Same thing.
Well, materials you buy to put on and supplies he has to fix his equipment and stuff, but.
All right. All right, so we have a motion as amended, and we have a second, so any other discussion? Roll call,
Clock eye.
Benoit, aye?
Wait a minute.
and Nichols, aye. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to fix the salaries and compensation of elected town officials for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022, in accordance with Section 108, Chapter 41 of General Laws as amended, or take any action in relation thereto. Do you have a motion?
Not to submit. Not to, whatever, post.
We're not gonna pay people?
This is looking for increases, isn't it? Huh?
No, this is just...
Oh, this is for the regular salary,
Yeah, this is the
sorry.
regular salaries of
Oh,
the elected
salaries.
officials.
Better post it,
So,
sorry.
to pay everybody except
Raise.
Skip.
I was gonna say, we're gonna have a problem with people not showing up.
Yeah, I don't think... Yeah, this is just to pay the
You know,
budgeted salaries.
I didn't read the whole thing, I just read the first part of it.
So do I have a motion on Article 3?
I think
Yeah.
Skip made it,
I did.
and I'll second it.
Oh, you did make it to go ahead now?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Just near that part.
He was quick.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman, aye.
And then Nichols, aye. Article 4, to see if the town will vote to raise such sums of money as may be necessary to defray the expenses of municipal departments for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022, and to determine whether the town will appropriate money therefore to be provided by taxation or by appropriation from available funds or taking action in relation thereto. A motion on Article 4?
I'll make a motion for discussion. To place.
Whitman, second.
Okay.
Got any numbers at all for this?
It's
Well,
the
you-
whole budget.
It's the whole budget, so, I mean, it's the municipal, I mean, you've got an estimated number, right? Your numbers just aren't final.
We're not done yet, so I can't
Right.
say anything.
But regardless,
Just
we're
use
going to have to,
You know,
We're
you gotta
going to
pay
have to
everybody,
place
I
it.
realize that, yes, but I didn't know if there was
I'm
some
not being
sort of
invasive, but we haven't
Right.
voted, so I can't say that we have the number.
right, so we'll have to place the articles and then
Yeah.
the numbers when we make our motions.
Yep.
Okay, so
You need a second.
you could,
I
Well, we
seconded
just
well,
it.
she
Well,
did,
we
but
just
you said
locked the
discussion,
doors.
so
All right.
we're
As
good?
of July
We're good.
1st.
All right, any other discussion? Roll call?
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman, aye.
And Nichols, aye?
We could
Article
go to
5, to see
112.
if the, I'm sorry?
We could go to a 112.
Yeah, idea.
I don't care. Oh, so the 1/12 of what they pay us? If you- Article 5, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of money to defray the expenses of Southern Worcester County Regional Vocational School Assessment for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022, to determine whether the town will appropriate money therefore to be provided by taxation or appropriation from available funds or take any action in relation thereto.
Motion to place.
For a second?
Whitman, seconds.
Any discussion? All right, roll call.
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman, aye.
And Nichols, aye. Article 6, to see if the town will raise and appropriate a sum of money to defray the expenses of Wachusett Regional School District minimum local contributions for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022, and to determine whether the town will appropriate money therefore to be provided by taxation or by appropriation from available funds or take any action in relation thereto. A motion on Article 6.
Motion to place, Article 6.
Do we have a second?
Whitman, seconds.
Any discussion?
Question. I thought Baypath gave us the minimum local contribution figures, not Wachusett. Is this,
It's
is
what
it the
you-
other way
No,
around?
Bay Path is always, 99% of the time, their budget is based upon the minimum local contribution. Wachusett, we pay 3 different or 4
Right,
different
three
things.
different articles.
Okay, thank you.
The only thing I would say is take out this is a fixed cost, because it's not a fixed cost. It changes.
It's the state-defined minimum local.
It is, but it's not a fixed cost.
I just was clarifying that it's state-defined, like
Right.
mandatory minimum, but
Yep.
it's not.
Okay.
I would say, because the changes every year.
Right, and I think that the point was that we're required to pay it, so.
Right, that's the thing, I agree,
Right,
yeah,
no,
I agree.
it's required, but not necessarily
Right.
fixed.
It's
Okay.
fixed for the year though, isn't it?
Yes, but what will happen is if you say it's a fixed cost, someone will look back and say, well, how come it's a different number than last year? Cut that out. Zip, gone.
Does it say fixed in here somewhere?
It did right there.
Oh, just in the major
Oh,
description stuff.
I'm sorry, I stopped at reading the 5 towns. Okay, I got you, yep.
Any other
That shouldn't be
discussion?
there, you're right, that shouldn't be there.
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman, I.
And Nichols, aye. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of money to defray the expenses of the Wachusett Regional School District debt service assessment for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022, and to determine whether the town will appropriate money therefore to be provided by taxation or by appropriation from available funds or take any action in relation thereto. Do we have a motion to submit? Anyone? Please?
I'll make the,
We gotta place these.
Place, I don't want it.
Whitman will second.
Okay.
Can-
And any discussion?
Just similar in the description, I don't know that this is a fixed cost.
It's not, it changes.
I
Yeah.
think
I
it's,
took it
We
out
should
of
put
it.
Okay.
no, that's fine. I
That's
just,
usually we should put as the next cost.
I'd love
if I-
that, but that's not gonna
Yeah,
happen,
it's really
so.
good to do that.
So how many more years we're gonna pay for this Jefferson Oil
They
screw up
didn't,
they
they
had?
didn't have an answer for us at the meeting. They knew
I
it was
thought, they guessed, I thought it was 2 more years.
2 or
2 or 3, I
3,
thought.
yeah.
It's
He
something
was, he
like
was
that.
gonna get us an answer, but it wasn't long. So
Oh,
it
yeah,
was
okay.
Under
That's
5.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a couple of
That's-
years
we were,
plus.
we were led to believe it was under 5, but they didn't have an exact number for us.
That's one of those answers they're gonna get back to us, and we'll get it sometime
Yeah, like
next
it was
year
their
or 2.
fault, not ours,
Absolutely.
but, okay,
Any other discussion? Roll call?
clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman, I.
And Nichols, aye. Article 8, to see if the town will raise and appropriate a sum of money to defray the expenses of Wachusett Regional School District transportation assessment for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022, to determine whether the town will appropriate money therefore to be provided by taxation or by appropriation from available funds or take any action in relation to. Do I have a motion to place?
Motion to place.
Second?
Whitman seconds.
Any discussion?
Can I just add a comment? I don't know if anybody's been following the state house budget and everything, but Representative Ferguson put in for a significant increase for regional transportation reimbursement. So at the state level, for regional agreement, this is more for the public listening, regional agreements, the state is supposed to fund the transportation 100%, and they haven't been ever. And so if the state increases the amount that they're reimbursing us on transportation, then our transportation expense would go down.
Maybe, because they get the money, we don't know what they do with it. Come on, let's be real.
Well, it's supposed to. It should at least go
In
down,
theory.
if not 100%.
Yeah.
But that is, I mean,
But I just wanted
Senator
to-
Ferguson has been
Oh,
fighting
yeah,
for
no,
that.
that's,
And I know
In
Senator
one battle.
Bobby has also,
Yes, yeah.
our state legislature has been
Yep.
fighting for us, but
And Carol, you're gonna take out this as a fixed cost on this one too? Thank you.
Any other discussion?
clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman, I.
And Nichols, aye. Article 9, to see if the town will, I thought I had got over this when I had to read them all for the finance committee. Now I gotta read all these articles for you? You're gonna reread them all, right, when you make your motions?
Mhm.
Hold on, I'm gonna listen.
Yeah, we're gonna keep a recording, and you
I'm just gonna have it say.
So moved.
Yeah, can you play that back? To see if the town will
I
vote
learned
to...
from Skip, as printed.
to raise and appropriate a sum of money to defray the expenses of Wachusett Regional School District operation assessment for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022, to determine whether the town will appropriate money therefore to be provided by taxation or appropriation from available funds or take any action in relation thereto.
Motion to
place.
place.
Whitman seconds.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman, I.
And then Nichols, aye.
Should we take out this is not a fixed cost?
I would.
Since
Yeah.
I would.
Nothing's fixed these days.
nothing's
It's all
fixed or
broken.
not fixed.
It's all broken.
Article 10, to see if the town will raise and appropriate a sum of money as may be necessary to defray the expenses of debt service for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022, and to determine whether the town will appropriate money therefore to be provided by taxation or by appropriation from available funds or take any action in relation thereto. Do we have a motion to place?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Whitman seconds.
Discussion?
I have a question, and this is just because we're coming off of the school side, but do we want to put municipal debt service, or is it, I can't remember the meeting, and I'm just going because we had done the municipal budget first
Yeah.
in our packet for the overall operating, and then we jumped to the schools, and now we're back to the,
You just think it'll be confusing for people, or?
I don't, just because we talk about debt service for the schools, and then now
Mhm.
we're talking about debt service again. Obviously, the description says it's for town,
I'd hate to put municipal and then for Becky to say, oh, something
It's-
isn't municipal, so
Right.
I don't want to
yeah,
pin ourselves down and
yeah,
have.
So I
You know
would
what I
just
mean?
put in the description, this is to
Yeah,
fund the
yeah,
municipal
yeah, just make sure it's
debt
clear in the
service.
description,
Okay.
probably, is that all right?
yeah, I think that makes,
But just in case, there's always gonna be something that's,
Yeah, there's always gonna be somebody
An
that wants to
exception.
talk
It's
about something.
municipal, but not school.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
wait a minute,
And Nichols' eye. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of money to operate water sewer department for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022, or take any action in relation thereto. Motion to place?
So move.
Second?
Whitman seconds,
Any discussion? Roll call?
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
wait a minute,
And Nichols' eye. Article 12, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $106,632 from the water and sewer retained earnings, free cash, for the purpose of paying the fiscal year 2022 debt service obligation resulting from the permanent borrowing of water and sewer infrastructure improvements, or take any action in relation thereto. Do I have a motion
So
to
moved.
place? Do I have a second?
Whitman seconds,
Any discussion? Roll call?
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
wait a minute,
And Nichols' eye.
and just, sorry.
Yep.
The description is good, Joe, you're good with the description, I assume so, but I
Oh,
just
I'm
wanted
He
to.
wrote it, or
Okay.
just, he. The only thing that I think that I might do is I'm gonna take out you as an I. It says I was unable to appropriate, so,
Oh,
It says due in year one.
yeah, doing your one.
oh, this is year one, thank
Yeah.
you.
We
I
could
will
have-
make that a one,
No, is it?
the letter one, the number, you know, what's spelled out.
I1, it's,
I one, thank you.
Yes, due in year one.
The font on my.
all right, Article 13, to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money from PEG Access and Cable related funds to fund PEG Access and Cable related operations for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022, and further that at the close of the fiscal year to provide all unspent funds shall be closed back to the PEG Access and Cable related fund and/or take any action in relation thereto.
So moved.
Whitman seconds,
Any discussion? Roll call?
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman aye.
And Nichols' eye. Article 14, to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022 for capital equipment, buildings, facilities, and other projects, and authorize the selectmen to take by eminent domain purchase or otherwise acquire any fees, easements, or interest in the land necessary, therefore determined whether but the funding shall be provided by the tax levy, by transfer from available funds, by borrowing, or by any combination of these methods, and further to authorize the Board of Selectmen to apply for, accept, and expend any federal or state grant funds or private donations that may be available for such capital improvements, and to take such other actions as may be necessary to effectuate the vote taken here under, or take any action in relation thereto. Do I have a motion to place? Or discuss, or something?
This is just for town buildings, or this, a motion to discuss?
do we
Okay.
have any, oh, yeah.
I'll second for,
Discussion, okay.
Do we have any backup as to what they're planning on spending?
I reached out to both Harry and Joe regarding this. Harry did not get back to me. Joe's out of town, so I do not have a dollar amount, and do not, if it's included, just capital equipment, buildings, facilities, or other account, honestly.
if I may, I think last year there was conversation that it was, a big piece was a requirement for the TIP project as well, for any,
Yeah, but it doesn't say that here.
it says land.
Yeah, land, but it could be your land, it could be my land, it could be anybody's
Right.
land.
But I think that, and I don't remember, I think, I thought last year there was a decent amount of discussion about this article, that it needed for the work on the tip and everything.
If you wanna put the
But that
tip
work's
in
been
this
done, isn't it?
I don't know if,
somehow, I'll go along with it, but I gotta agree to this. They could come to me and say, hey, I'm gonna take your property for eminent domain.
Well, I think the only thing, I mean, the thing is, it has to be authorized by this board,
Go ahead.
right?
and CIP, like,
This is the same article has only been on the warrant every year.
Right.
To fund the
This is a standard.
the capital
Right,
committee's
accepting
budget.
grants and funds and,
Matter of fact, I think last year we put extra money in it.
The, sorry to interrupt you.
Go
The
ahead.
article Leah was referring to was for the TIP project is separate and distinct. It was
Okay,
drafted by council. What throws you off is it had an eminent domain reference in it,
okay,
but it's a separate one. It's already been passed and it's in play right now.
okay, and I thought so, I just wanted to
Yeah,
make
this
sure
is
that it was-
different. It's, I guess it's an annual thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I know we've seen this annually.
Because there's no funding in the budget,
right.
so I guess I'm curious as to what we're voting this article for.
Well, it talks about if grant funds come in and stuff. So I'm assuming that if any funding does come in, it authorizes the board to accept it.
That's Article 15.
No, it authorizes, it says to further authorize the Board of Selectmen to
Any
apply
fund.
for, accept,
State.
and expend any federal or state grant, I think it should be grant, not grand, funds or private donations that may be available. So it authorizes us to apply for and also receive. So I think like, for example, some of the donations that have been made either through this 300th or the kitchen work at the community center, senior center, and everything, it allowed allowed us to accept those.
But there's, as Karen's saying, there's specific grant on Article 15. So I think maybe,
If it's about the state,
I'm real-
two-thirds vote if
Yeah.
borrowing is authorized in the
That's
stabilization.
the thing. I'm like, I'm uncomfortable
I
because
don't
there's
have
no
any-
information as
Skip,
to
if
what
you were
this is
scared
for.
about them taking your land, you should be really scared about that statement.
This just says that they can, allows us to, if we want, it has to, like you just said, it has to
Right.
come before the Board of Selectmen, it has to come before us for a recommendation, it has to go to town meeting.
Okay.
It just doesn't happen automatically.
I think it authorizes us to do our job.
Right.
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 Not that it's
I was under the impression.
specific to any.
I was under the impression in conversation, and I think it was last year, maybe it was 2 years ago, that legal's opinion was that this is a standard article that essentially needs to be placed for,
Giving us the
government
authority
function.
to function, right?
right.
Then I would, then my recommendation would be is take out the 2/3 vote if borrowing is authorized or stabilization funds are used. Because right now, we're not using any funds. This is just allowing you guys to do it if and when the time comes.
So that's not part of, that's not written in as part of the article, right? That's just a comment.
It's a comment, but the thing is you're gonna read 2/3 vote if borrowing is authorized or
No,
stabilization
that's what I'm saying.
funds
Is
are
that
used.
supposed to be read as
Should-
part of the article? Because it's a separate.
It isn't,
No,
it's just
no.
there as, but remove it so that, because there's no borrowing or no stabilization funds being used. This is just allowing you to apply for whatever.
But
ahead.
Tommy's statement is,
So Karen, what we've done in the past,
Yeah.
when the motion is presented at town meeting, there's usually a chart of capital items in it, and it says where the revenue is coming from to pay for it. And last year, I think we had the ambulance, federal funds.
Yes,
You know, so we basically gave you a chart of where it was.
right.
And I know a couple of years ago, we had something in there that was to be borrowed.
Right.
And Joe Becker asked that it needed to be a 2/3 because of the article.
Right.
So that's why that wording is
My only
there,
thing is,
but-
we don't have that chart here tonight, so we don't have, I haven't seen anything, the finance committee hasn't seen anything. Doesn't sound like you guys have seen anything, it's kind of concerning.
Could it be as a comment in the description that if any recommendation, just kind of as a standard for always and forever, if expenditures
Well, then-
are through borrowing or use of stabilization funds, 2/3 majority vote is required.
Or could you just say
something.
2/3 majority vote is required if borrowing authorization and stabilization funds are used, something like that?
Yeah, but I'm just wondering if it just, if
Oh, I see.
if we're not actually borrowing this meeting,
Right?
that if we just include that in the description rather than separated it out, just as kind of a common, so everybody knows that if there's any borrowing that happens or if there's any talk of it needs to go to stabilization, the public knows it's not the five of us or FinCom that can make those, it still requires a 2/3 majority town meeting vote, so it empowers them a little bit to know that any,
I see, I didn't read that. Yeah, that should say 2/3 voters required
Right.
if stabilization funds are borrowing is authorized by the town meeting, so the wording is backwards there, that's all.
Required, doesn't let it go.
Because, I mean,
Two-thirds vote is
because in the article,
required
it does
to
say
use-
by borrowing, so I mean, borrowing is included in the article.
Right.
Yeah, but the way it's, I can understand what the confusion is, it says in borrowing, 2/3 vote is required to authorize using those funds.
Before the finance committee makes their recommendation, I'd really like that chart so we know what we're voting on, so it's not
that's
just
true.
throwing darts at the wall. Please.
I'm
And
okay
if I
with-
could, to Mr. Nichols and Mr. Rusala's comments, in the description, it says that it must be approved by the town's CI, Capital Improvement Committee, and then by town meeting before they can be purchased. It doesn't say anything about approval by Board of Selectmen or Finance.
No, we're gonna make a recommendation in this article. That's all we have to do.
So are we just gonna reword this part about the stabilization, is that? good
I
enough?
was, at the end of that,
Just
where
remove it and we'll stop.
where Gary just read, where it said these items must be approved
Mhm.
before they can be purchased, there's a comma. If we can add something after that stating that, 2/3 majority vote is required if funding is
For-
authorized through borrowing and or use of stabilization funds, or something along those lines, then take out that bold 2/3 vote if borrowing, because if we don't know what the chart is as of right now. I'm not aware of any borrowing things to come before us or
Right,
use of
I haven't heard about
stabilization.
anything that's supposed to be.
So if there was a chart that we were gonna go to a debt exclusion or something, then I can understand having that highlighted bold kind of right under the chart, but I think including it in the description just provides assurance to the town.
I think that line, where I started off in the beginning, should be vacated from it. It doesn't do anything but add confusion to gonna be a long, confusing meeting to start with.
Mhm.
We all know the rules if this goes down. All that's gonna do is make somebody say something that we don't need to debate it. I don't think that, Darren's opinion, I don't think it needs to be there at all.
Once we see the chart, the only person that needs to know if it's 2/3 vote would be Randy, because he's the one that's gonna have to take the
Randy and,
count.
Town council is supposed to be
Right.
there to.
So,
Now, I mean, I guess that's what concerns me, is this was all reviewed by town council, so why they thought this was clear?
well,
I've never
They
seen that
don't-
sentence before. Has that been in there before?
yes,
But not like a separate line like this.
yes.
It's read- If they wrote it, they wrote it
They've
the
had it in
wrong
different
way.
places where we've said 2/3 votes required and all that kind of
Well,
stuff.
no, I know it's always been a requirement, but that's what confuses me, it's like a total separate line from the whole paragraph.
Maybe this
the
is
whole
to help
article.
the moderators.
So I
we
thought
don't
this
have
was
the
for
confusion, but-
clarification, I
Well,
didn't
no,
think it
this is
was.
so, like, instead
That's
of,
a good point.
it's a majority vote, I
Yeah.
just type that in, or it's a 2/3.
But your point is the.
They're
is the-
telling you why
is,
it's
you know,
2/3.
when he asked for the motion and he's declaring that we're gonna vote, he's gotta explain what it is.
Maybe this is
That's
to
what
help
we're
the
doing.
moderator clarify
Yeah.
what the vote is all about and how it's supposed to be.
Right, that's what Carol was just saying, it's just saying, instead of it just being a majority vote, it's a 2/3 vote.
And
Take
then
it
why
out.
it's a 2/3 vote.
So
Only if borrowing or stabilization
Right.
funds are being, go ahead, sorry.
officially, we write two budgets. We write a budget for our operating accounts and then a capital budget. Oftentimes, the capital budget isn't funded, but that's what you use as a list or a benchmark to pass on to CIPC to make long-term capital decisions.
Mhm.
Could be anything from a sidewalk to a new grader, for me, okay? So my understanding was this article was just being as a place marker, like the regular budget. It said, this is the capital budget, and this is our procedure for making capital decisions. I don't believe they have any, but it's the same type of you're making it's the same procedure as the operating budget, it's just for capital purposes. So you're just documenting what it is the town does before they buy a piece of equipment or improve a building or pave a road.
Right, and we've always had this article, I guess the only confusion is the way it's being worded as far as the 2/3.
But if we don't have anything to be funded, which, that's the big question right now, there would be no reason for this, because you can't empower this if they're borrowing, we'd have to come back to town meeting to get the 2/3. If they're using stabilization, they have to come back to the 2/3. So that was my question.
What about short-term borrowing?
It still has to be 2/3 because it's still borrowed.
But it also allows the select board to apply for, accept, and expend federal, state grants, private donations that would be allocated for those approved capital improvements.
Okay. It's a moot point. I just make sure we get it before we have to make our recommendations, please.
I understand the chart
Because I
part.
had-
I'm just
we've not
trying to
seen any of
clarify to
this.
make sure we're wording it correctly so we move forward, because we're gonna place this article. It's just a matter of making sure it's clear.
Oh, you did fine.
You did great. I know.
So what's,
So we used majority vote and or 2/3 vote for stabilization fund use, we could say, and borrowing. We used that already, so we could use just to copy that line.
I don't think so.
I think,
I'm sure.
I think what's throwing us
No,
off
I've
is the
never seen that.
first
We've not
line
seen
that says to
anything.
see if the town will appropriate a sum of money. We haven't been asked for a sum of money for anything yet, so the town can't appropriate anything unless we do get a chart that says this is what we need. So I think that's what throws us all off, rather than just saying, this is to do our business.
All we ever heard throughout the budget season was the potential of a bond package for pavement.
Right.
Right.
all right, we gotta move forward, so we just need to clarify the wording on it. So where do we leave it, Karen, as far as?
Take
So
it
if we
right out.
say majority vote and or 2/3 vote for stabilization fund or borrowing.
Take it right out, just take it out.
I think, like I said, this is just more for clarification for Randy when he's when he's,
Well, I think
I
that,
think
but I
you're
think
right.
that it also gives the floor, they need to think
Right.
about too.
but this doesn't have to be read as in the article.
Right.
This is
No,
just-
you wouldn't read
Questions.
that.
Right,
So
we do
that's-
not. So by
so that's
putting
like-
it in,
see,
it's
that's
only
what I'm
gonna
saying,
bring up more
clarify.
We may
questions.
recommend no action
Article is the
Right.
article this
at
is.
this point.
So is the board fine with that?
Yeah.
How would I know?
Right.
Leah, you all
We
set
should
with
know.
that?
What?
We should know here. That's fine.
You all set, do you have?
yeah,
any-
sorry, I said yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. So then can I get a roll call? I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
Benoit, I
Whitman, I.
Nichols eye. How many articles we have to go through?
already sounded like.
Bunch more, we're doing it.
Article 15, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to apply for, accept, and expend any grants or donations from the state or federal government or private agencies, individuals, or institutions, or take any action in relation thereto.
Motion, please.
Whitman seconds.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Clock eye.
Whitman, I.
And Nichols eye.
Oh, that was too easy.
Yeah, wait till the next one.
Article 16, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into contracts for goods and services for durations in excess of 3 years under the provisions of GLC 30B, 12B, or take any action in relation thereto.
Motion, please.
Second,
Whitman seconds.
any discussion? Roll call,
Clock eye.
Benoit, I.
Whitman, I.
and Nichols eye. Article 17, to see if the town will vote to appropriate all funds which become available in fiscal year 2022 from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Highways, Chapter 90, bond issue proceeds to be used by the DPW for repairs and maintenance of town roads in conformance with Massachusetts general laws, and further that the town vote to raise and appropriate by borrowing and authorize the town treasurer with approval of the Board of Selectmen to issue bonds or notes of the town, therefore in anticipation of receipt of said state aid, or take any action in
Motion,
relation
please.
thereto. Do I have a second?
Whitman seconds.
Before you get a vote, Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
that should be fiscal year 2023.
No, me.
Good catch.
That's my fault.
We're good as amended?
So,
Okay, roll call,
clock eye.
Benoit, I.
Whitman, I.
and Nichols eye.
As long as we don't get in trouble for that really long sentence.
Article 18, to see if the town will vote to amend the town's general bylaw, general provision and membership requirement to adopt the proposed schedule of fines and to repeal the non-criminal disposition bylaw, each according to the documents on file with the town clerk, or take any action in relation thereto. Motion
Motion
placed.
place.
A second?
Wayman seconds for discussion.
Okay.
These are the bylaw, is this one, so this is one part of the ad hoc bylaw committee's work, is that
I
correct?
think,
You should have
No.
a chart with all the fees, but I don't see it. I know they got it.
They would be putting it in them, hopefully.
You would hope.
but I don't think this is a change in the bylaws. This is just the one that, right, there was no changes in the specific bylaw. This is the one that we always place for fees.
But it's got a description related back to
Asking
that
us to it.
bylaw.
Right.
ad hoc
Because I'm
committee.
just looking at the subsequent articles also, and they seem to be the
These are
bylaw.
all the bylaws coming up right now.
Right.
And a lot of the changes were and, ifs, buts, why, who,
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
There was
Right.
nothing major. It
But-
was kicking a can down the road a little, changing the name.
If, sorry, maybe Norm, if you don't mind.
Oh, yep.
Okay, there are going to be some substantive changes in the bylaw, not necessarily in this particular
Right.
article. For example, we have never had a town administrative bylaw.
Yes.
One of the changes
Yep.
would be to add a town administrative bylaw. And there's been, some changes just for uniformity in terms of like fines and procedures and that sort of thing. The net effect really is no, we're not changing the effect of the bylaw.
Is this article the start of the ad hoc bylaw subcommittee's work? That's, I
This is
think what I
chapter
was,
one.
okay.
Next article is, I forget now.
Yeah, I know that
Yeah.
there's, the subsequent ones definitely are,
But
but,
this particular one didn't have any substantive changes to it, correctly?
I thought they updated some of the
Well-
fines to be in match.
The amounts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's a substantive change.
And we had the non-criminal disposition bylaw as a separate bylaw. Okay, it's now been incorporated, so it's no longer gonna be a separate bylaw. But the effect is still the same, it still works the same way.
We're gonna have to pass out some no-dos.
Has the lawyers come back with answers on all of these?
No, Mr. Crane is here, and he has spoken with counsel regarding this, and he's here if we need him.
Yeah, we need
Does
them.
this, okay, I'll get him, he's there from
Please.
18 to 25, okay.
We got something back, I think, on the first 3 chapters.
Yeah, better have them all.
Right, yeah, if we don't have responses back from town council, how are we gonna place the changes?
We will have, they're coming.
Well,
and I guess my
Tonight's the
question,
last
tonight-
night, so
tonight's
you're
the
out of
night to
luck.
know, so.
and I guess my question is what
Right,
backup is gonna be provided to town meeting as far as what
did you bring those
the
ash
changes
ones
are,
in?
because people, we know there's a, I know
he's looking for
the ad hoc bylaw committee has done a lot of work
Covered
with
it.
trying to
He's
get
gonna need
public
those at
information
home
hearings
pretty
and
soon.
everything. But we also know there's a lot of people that show up to town meeting that do their research right there and then
Right.
and whatever, and so I just,
Peter has made up a couple of presentations. I'm not sure exactly how he's going to do it at town meeting, but he has organized all of the changes, into even different categories of changes, and that sort of thing for each one of the chapters.
So, town council reviewed the warrant, correct? Right?
They were supposed to, yeah.
Hi, everybody. Gary, do we know if town council reviewed the entire warrant?
I did send it off to them, so I have not heard back from them, but
So we're asking if town council made comments on these changes to the bylaws.
We have chapters 3, 4, and 5 back from them.
which are they, because they're not listed.
Yeah, they're not.
So-
Chapter
separate
1
chapters.
here, general provisions.
Right, so it's not, nope, so we have feedback on,
General government, financial affairs.
all financial affairs we've got, legal affairs we've got, and.
What numbers are these articles?
So, 20,
21 and 22.
yes,
21.
and 22. We already have the feedback, we've already reviewed them, we've already integrated them and published them, so.
And
Those are locked.
And I had a question as far as what documentation there would be available at town meeting for the voters to look at before. I mean, I know you guys have done the public information hearings and everything, but we also know there's a lot of people that show up to town meeting and do their research right then and there. So are there,
All we're thinking about at this point is to print off the however many copies we want of the consequential changes document, which is what, 8 pages or so, I think, last I checked. Because we're not gonna print however many copies of a 153-page document. We're not going to do that. There's no value. There's too much to review on the, if people were gonna try and review that document during town meeting, it's not gonna happen.
But you gave us articles to place that have not been reviewed.
They have not yet, we have not yet gotten legal feedback yet.
Why would we place them if we don't have any legal feedback?
Because we expect to get them, we got that,
Oh,
I mean, okay, so your choices are, don't place any or place them all.
You don't wanna play some of them?
No, if we don't have legal review, if we don't have chapter 1, we have nothing. Because that lays the foundation for everything that follows. If we don't have chapter 2, then we don't have a town administrator, we don't have, and select board is as it is today, and everything else is as it is today. And if I don't have, if you require legal feedback to be complete before you place the warrant article, and that is your decision, then we can't place tonight.
so why wouldn't chapter 1 have been done first?
I can't answer that, that's out of my purview. All I can tell you is what I have.
But chapter 1 was submitted first to town council for review.
Yeah.
And they just did it out of order.
I can only presume.
That makes sense.
So again, if the choice is, if you are unwilling to place without legal review being complete, then we pull them off.
I mean, I guess if we're just gonna place them without the legal review, like, why do we even get the legal review? Because we not really know that we're placing something that should be placed.
Because legal review of the bylaws themselves has no effect on the warrant. Because the contents of the bylaws are not part of the warrant. They're part of the backup material for the warrant. So in the same way that you don't have absolutely every single penny down in the budget today,
Right, but we know we have to place those orders, those articles. We don't have to place these articles. We don't have an opinion.
And we
Because
have
it
to
doesn't-
have the budget done by then. And
I-
we pretty much have the numbers at this point. It's,
so philosophically, I don't see a difference between having,
Yeah.
knowing you're going to have the budget ready and the firmest belief from town council that we're going to have bylaws. But, as I say, those are your choices, as I see them.
So,
I guess can I, go ahead.
good, no, good.
I guess I don't know why, like, the first one wasn't done first, right? And we started from the beginning. I mean, that's kind of how, I don't know what happened to town council, that they missed it.
Right, do they not understand that we have to do the first one in order to place the other ones?
And I understand that they busted their hump trying to get all this done.
Right.
But I think the way old school tells me that it starts at the beginning, we get the right answers, and then we move forward. No one in this room is against any of this. I just want to make sure it's right. That's Darren's personal opinion. How's that?
Go ahead, Skip had a question next.
Oh, why don't we just, why can't we place them and make no action if we don't get anything from town council?
Because then we sit and we go through all these things with no action. And we just, it's gonna
Well,
be
with-
all that discussion for no reason.
With
I-
town, yeah, but with town council, they should be ready in a week, less than a week.
I
I'd say they
just
should,
have a
I don't know,
I have a problem that our legal counsel doesn't know that they should have been given us the first chapters and gone in sequence so that we could place them. I
how
don't
many weeks
understand
have
that.
they had these?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I am certain that they have distributed based on what, verbal clues from Lauren suggest that they've been distributed to several attorneys.
Go ahead, Tom, just speak.
So, once these come back from town council and say they're okay, is there gonna be a public hearing, or is the public gonna have a chance to review these?
The public information sessions have been held, they're done.
But,
So-
so you haven't had.
But
any-
if the town council changes some, if something's changed,
Right?
then you just change them, and then whatever the people heard before is different now, it doesn't make any difference.
And this goes back to consequential changes. Council has not suggested consequential changes to any of the bylaws so far, not to say that they can't. But at the end of the day, any changes that are consequential from town council will go in the same document that we're making of consequential changes.
Through the chair, have they made any changes to any of the documents so far?
Yes, lots.
There's
There have been-
there's my
That's
answer.
mine too. I mean, I don't understand.
You guys
If
can
it
decide,
isn't
but-
significant, then it shouldn't take them that long. And I think that the town council should know that they should be getting those chapters in order. They should understand that we need to place them in order. It's very frustrating. I thought pretty much we were all set with town council reviewing them, because I know they've been being sent out, so.
And these, how much of the town bylaw do these articles cover? The whole thing, or just part of it?
We've put 7 technically, but the first 6 chapters are in a new format. The last chapter is not, and that will be divided into 2 chapters in the future and put on a future town meeting warrant. So, I mean, in terms of the number of bylaws, there are 10 that haven't been done, and fast math, which is probably wrong, around 17 that have.
So if you don't do the whole bunch of them at once, how does the first general provisions affect part of the new ones, but does it also apply to the old ones that are there? Or does the old one apply to the old ones, or how does that work?
So, there are changes in general provisions that apply to the bylaws that are, very important adverb, nearly unmodified. They were modified and sent to legal review only enough to make sure that they are consistent with everything that comes before. And there are 3 of those in that last chapter.
I guess with Tommy's point, I have a question about Tommy's point, and through the chair, I'm sorry. We're gonna vote, I understand because of the amount of them, we have to vote to split them up. But I am not, I'm uncomfortable, you guys can do what you want, but what Tommy just said is, what if half of them get passed and then there's changes? We're making this big vicious circle.
And the public hearings weren't on legal reviewed,
That's my point too.
the public hearings weren't on legal reviewed bylaws. That's my concern, is they weren't on legal reviewed. So what you guys saw were not legally reviewed. What anyone saw at the town public information system, sessions were not legally reviewed. So now what you're gonna have to do is you're now gonna have to take the time, anyone who went, there wasn't a ton, but still, anyone who went to those, they're gonna say, oh, there was nothing that bad, so maybe I don't need to go to the town meeting. And now there might be a change.
Well, my point is, if he had just said to us there's been no changes by legal, I'd have a little different opinion. You guys are going down, in my opinion, you're going down a slippery slope. And why would we, not taken away from it, I'd like to have the whole thing done, reviewed, we're good to go, let's all get behind it and pass it.
I mean, my understanding was that they were reviewed, or we wouldn't have had them. I didn't realize that they weren't reviewed, or back from legal.
You guys can decide, but. I just think if you, and maybe, by the time the town meeting, legal review would be back. But if there's any substantive changes, and then we're doing that game, you're looking for a meeting that's gonna be delayed to the next day.
Right, and if there's a lot of changes, that's gotta be posted so people can review that in time to.
Right.
Okay, what's the board wanna do?
Not taking action on the floor.
Yeah, but the whole purpose is to have a warrant so people can see what's truly gonna be voted on, not a whole bunch of, 17 pages and 16 of them are no action.
Well, there may be people of the opinion that it doesn't make a difference now, until the last minute at the town meeting, and people are trying to fumble with 12 or 15 pages of stuff you're gonna vote on, but it seems to me that maybe there's nobody out there who wants to review them, but if somebody does wanna look at them, the public, the resident, the taxpayer in Rutland, if they would like to look through the bylaws before they go to the town meeting to vote on them, they should be able to do that.
It's online. That's what everybody tells me. It's online.
Right, it's online, but it might not be right. That's what we're saying.
It
might
is
be-
up to date as of all the legal review that we
Right.
have received and processed. And as we get them, we the committee, review the proposed changes, decide which ones we take and which ones we don't, and then we publish them.
Word on the street is there's some groups in town that wanna change some of the wording on the floor. That may be true or false. Let's get all our ducks in a row before we go through that exercise.
Well, like I said, I was under the impression that they were reviewed prior to us placing these. And I'm with Darren with the concern if there were, like you said, if there weren't a lot of changes, if they're making a lot of changes, then I have a concern about that because we're not presenting accurate information right now. It may be posted, but if they make changes and we have to change it, we don't have a lot of time before town meeting for people to go back and reread all of them if they have any interest in it. I don't know.
I'm just looking at I think Peter sent this to the select board a while ago, the substantive changes. And it seems like there were a lot of
Consequential.
Substantive.
changes in Chapter 1, Chapter 2, because Chapter 2 is where the whole town administrator bylaw is added. And those two have not yet been returned from legal. So I struggle for a new bylaw that's being created to place it without any feedback at all from legal seems
And I know the first public information session that I attended, there was a lot of questions on the town administrator bylaw. I don't know if that changed at all for the second one, because I was unable to make it to the second one because of conflicts with the finance committee. But I know that was a big one. The people that were there were very concerned with that one.
All right, we place them or we don't. I think the board needs to make a decision.
I already said what I thought,
Somebody should thank him. It's so much so. It's unfair.
I mean, I'd be interested to hear from you and Carol Linden because I'm kind of torn. I know it's been a lot of work and there's been a lot of public opportunity for public input. I also struggle with at least two of them that have not had legal return yet, being very substantial. And had created a lot of conversation either at the public information sessions or just kind of around town and everything. So
My frustration was with town council that they didn't, I don't understand why they didn't understand what the process was. They reviewed not only the bylaws that were submitted, or some of them, but they also reviewed our warrant. I mean, did they not understand that they hadn't gotten that information back to us and expected us to place it without, I mean, why were we sending it for them to review it?
Well, no,
If we
Gary
were-
said he sent it to him. He hasn't heard back from him.
No, Peter, you sent them.
I sent them.
No,
This-
the
No,
warrant.
No, no,
the warrant,
I'm
yes.
sorry.
Right.
So we haven't heard back from them about the warrant yet, guys? Is that what I'm just hearing? Because I'm a little confused why we hear that.
And we have to,
Because we
we
don't-
have to
I
place
know,
it
but,
to-
I mean, but Lyndon, I,
Right.
no disrespect, but these guys gotta get their ducks in a row before we come here to do this with you guys. It's
But the
gonna be,
warrant articles are just general description
Right.
of what you're gonna discuss.
right, but it would be nice to have them done.
Well, yes, but I'm.
Well, just like most years, we don't have all of our numbers for the budget. We have, a lot of
Right.
times, you know, a lot of these are very standard ones that we need to place, but
Okay.
all these bylaws, I mean, there's a lot of them here. And if you can't do it, you can't
But that
do
would be
some.
like us doing a public information session and saying,
No.
here's a balanced budget, here's what we're doing, and oops, nope, now we're gonna change all the numbers. That's, to me, is what we'd be doing. It's a bait and switch. If there are substantive changes.
My concern is, right, that the public can review the bylaws, but they may not be what's gonna be presented at
That's
the
the
town
thing. If you
meeting.
went to the public information sessions, you would have thought that those were the final ones that you're gonna see at the town floor.
That's what I said.
And if
right?
they're going to
Yeah,
change,
exactly.
people aren't going to continue to keep looking to say, ooh, has it been updated? Ooh, has it been updated?
I'm
We
not
don't.
saying there can't be consequential changes from legal. I'm going to say the changes so far have been inconsequential. They've taken our changes, they've approved some wording, but it's just word choice changes. It's not scratch this, add that, whole new section. Those aren't the changes they're making, or they haven't suggested, I should say. But again, I can't say they won't or can't.
I mean, I personally am not comfortable without legal counsel
That, I
having
mean,
reviewed it.
that's,
Well, I'm sorry, the other question, you said there was how many pages in these, 153?
That's the whole book. Actually, 153 plus, it's 160 something pages actually, now that I think about it, because there are some.
But how many pages you send them? That's the whole book you're talking, where that's 3 chapters.
We've sent all the bylaws, there's more stuff in the book than just bylaws. But we've sent all the bylaws and the fine table, and that is the vast majority of the pages, but I don't have a page count.
I guess, I have a lot of questions, but it's not gonna solve the problem that we don't have the legal review from before we need to place. And like I said, just looking at the ones that we have legal review for and the ones that we don't have legal review for, the ones that we don't have I don't wanna make it sound like the ones that we do have legal review for didn't have a decent number of changes, but the ones that we don't yet have legal review seem to have a lot of.
Or are brand new to the town.
Correct. I was gonna say a lot of changes that impact kind of the function of town.
How we govern the town, right?
Right. And not that I necessarily disagree with them, but not having feedback from legal on something that's brand new versus we just changed wording and everything. And I also know how much work.
So you asked for my thought is that all of the work is none of it is in vain. It's delayed for the floor at town meeting until November maybe. So nothing is wasted.
Not to bring
Time.
another topic back up that's been discussed before, but there has been a fair amount of pushback to having general bylaws done at special town meeting. And there are people who complain. I don't think they're right, but the noise happens nonetheless. If it's not done at annual, some people think that you're trying to sneak it through.
And
Well, I think that this would be even worse because we're presenting them with something we don't really know. And it may be very minor to minimal changes, but it's not final.
And I would argue that if there's widely advertised, publicized, talked up notification that it's, because I think I had suggested at one point, potentially even looking at a separate meeting entirely for bylaws only, and kind of really talking it up and everything. So I think that there's going to be people that push back no matter what. Some people don't have a problem with it being at town fall, some people do. Some people wouldn't have a problem with having it not had been legally reviewed, some people will. I think it's the communication piece and the publicity piece, if we were to delay it till fall or a separate standalone meeting or however. But I do hear,
So-
I hear that from many people.
But I mean, I can't imagine we're gonna get all these back by legal by town meeting. When we didn't get all, I mean, the majority of them we don't have back, right?
I haven't done a numbers analysis, but there are certainly, well, there are 4 chapters still pending, plus the fine table.
I mean, you only said 3 articles are back, 20, 21, and 22,
Right.
those chapters.
So we can kick this around all night long, what do we wanna do with it? Place it and make no action if this stuff doesn't come through, or do you wanna just take it off the warrant altogether?
I'm not a fan of placing it and taking it off. I feel like that's we get ourselves in a bad precedent for doing that. Not necessarily specifically for this, but just in other instances. But I don't know.
I won't place it without legal review.
I
Okay,
think
so-
public information sessions, once they're back from legal review, would be helpful to be able to ease these to come through.
So if nobody wants to make the motion, I will, we'll just won't place any of the articles for the bylaw until legal action is done, and we'll set up a fall town meeting. And if the people don't like it, it's too bad.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Clock eye,
Whitman, I
And Nichols, aye.
Regrets, I'm sorry.
sorry about that, Peter.
No,
thank you guys for all the work you've been doing.
Well,
I
like I
know
say, it's not in vain, I mean,
Right.
and it's always a work in process, I think bylaws will always be.
oh, hold on, there's one you have to place. You have to place the revolving funds.
Revolving funds isn't a bylaw change, that's the 53.5.
Right.
You're right. And there's a bylaw that establishes every single revolving fund. If it's not in that bylaw, it doesn't exist.
So don't we have one now? Who doesn't?
Yeah,
You
so
don't,
it's a-
you don't have tax title, you don't have Earthworks, you don't have RDIC, you don't have ZBA. Without a bylaw change, now, I'm not saying that means you have to do all of them, believe me, I've been going through lots of permutations of things that happen.
So how do we do it now?
Don't we do this article every year? You're
Right, we
for
do that
Article
every year.
26?
Yes, but the contents of Article 26 are only allowed to contain the revolving funds that exist in the bylaw. So, I'm just saying, you have to place an amendment to the revolving fund bylaw. You have to, otherwise you have to amend that warrant article to take off ZBA, RDIC, Earthworks, and tax title.
So that's Article 20 we're talking.
26.
26.
So have we heard back from the lawyer in regards to the revolving funds?
Yes.
That was one of 20, 21, 22 was.
Yeah, it was Article
No.
20.
We heard back from the lawyer on the bylaw. Have we heard back from the lawyer in regards to
Oh, the warrant article, that's.
like I know RDIC, Dan referred to the lawyer. Have we heard back that that's an okay use of a revolving fund? Don't everyone talk at once.
Karen? Pretty nice.
That is nice.
But I guess. I mean, I guess we can place the article without adding any of the new ones. Because we've done it every year.
I know
But the side effect of not having that is it cuts Becky off at the knees because of tax title, and there are probably general budget repercussions, general fund budget repercussions of having to fund RDIC and ZBA more than you have planned to do so far. That's one of the points of this.
So you're okay with us taking that chapter all by itself without
Not
chapter
even the whole
one?
chapter, just the revolving funds bylaw.
Which has been legally reviewed.
Yes. So,
But that's in 26, right?
no.
No, it's not.
No.
It's,
You have to do it
20.
That's in
So
20.
it would change 20 to say to see if the town will vote to amend the town's revolving funds bylaw according to the document on file with the town clerk or take any action with relation thereto. So we pull everything except revolving funds out. And you really have to place that.
Except that, have we heard from the lawyer in regards to the validity of RDIC having one? I know we've heard regarding the
ZBA.
the ZBA, but RDIC, the question was asked to Dan deferred it to the lawyer. And so before we start approving a bylaw that says, yeah, this is acceptable, shouldn't we? I'm just talking.
Do we
You just
need
said they
to
reviewed it.
specify the revolving
The
funds to
bylaw.
place the
Yeah, I
article?
thought you just said they.
But the bylaw doesn't mean that it's an appropriate use of a 50, if they looked at the bylaw,
I'm sorry,
that
I
doesn't
don't
mean that they
understand your
agreed
question.
that they
I mean, do we
RDIC
have
should
to
have one.
specify all
she's
these
just saying
funds
separate.
Yes,
tonight?
each year, well, yes, if you're going to put this on the warrant, you have to specify it tonight.
Specify each of these new ones.
Yes. Feel free to adjourn.
The natives got restless.
Okay,
Okay, so I wrote the.
thank you very much.
They want a revolving fund to be able to pay certain things instead of a
So,
revolving fund versus.
Just so we don't forget, I think 25 is a zoning bylaw amendment coming from the planning board and not from
That
here.
is correct.
I just don't want us to skip over that, because we skipped to 26 right now. Norm, am I correct on that? I think I was on the planning board meeting when you had the public hearing about it, or whatever.
Yes.
Okay.
You may in fact want to resequence the articles just
So
because
that
of,
26 would go with the revolving.
yeah, I put it right next to it, and since you're scratching all the other ones, I don't think there's a big problem.
So we're looking for a motion to place Article 20.
Right, so we'll just go
Amend-
through, so we made the motion to not place 18, correct?
Correct,
Not place 19.
correct.
So here we are at 20. Does somebody want to make a
I
motion?
made a motion to place 20.
As amended.
As
We have
amended.
the
What
wording
is
on-
the,
I have it to see if the town will vote to amend the town's revolving funds bylaw.
Yep.
According to the document on file with the town clerk, or take any action in relation thereto.
Yes.
And do I have a second?
Whitman will second with the, as amended, right? It's the.
Did you move it? Oh, well, he moved.
Skip
moved
moved
it.
it.
Leah seconded.
So Carol, that amended, excuse me, number 20 will now become number 18?
18.
Yeah.
And then I would suggest moving 26 to 19.
All right, so why don't we vote on 20? Do I roll call?
Hawkeye.
Whitman, I.
And Nichols, aye. All right.
Hey
so
guys,
we're going
it's
to
Tamika.
take
I
a-
have a quick question.
Yeah.
Did the board vote to not place number 19 yet?
Yeah, we did.
We did, not to place, not to place.
Well,
I thought that was in the lump sum that we originally said not to place, and
Yeah,
now we
but
just
we
went
know
back
one
And I
to.
just went through those, so
Right.
I said 18 were not
Okay.
placed. Yeah.
So we're just gonna do it as one vote for those numbers to not be placed, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Right, is the board fine with that?
I'm,
So we're on to 20, and the board voted not to place 21, correct?
Right, not to place 21.
Not to place 22. And not to place 23. Not to place 24. Now we're at 25. See if the town will vote to amend the town's zoning bylaw by amending text references, and so do we need to, are we amending this one as well? 25 is the one that.
This is a new one, right?
This is the one, this is planning board.
Yeah.
So if I'm,
This is zoning.
Yep.
when I was on, Norm can speak to this, I was on the public hearing for, that the planning board held for this. It's, I think that they're cleaning up the language around a lot of it. It's not anything,
Significant changes to the title.
but Norm can speak to it directly.
It's technical corrections.
26.
Overlaying some duplicated language that doesn't need to be in two different sections, it should be referred to. And some clarification. A sample is that
All these are gone.
some of the activities that are allowed under the zoning
6 wants to be
bylaw
19.
include the use of bridle paths.
25 wants to be done.
And the way the language is written now, it cannot be used at night. It doesn't make sense. So, you know, the language type can't go forward. And that's-
All right, so I'm going to read Article 25 as written, to see if the town will vote to amend the town zoning bylaw by amending text references in Article 3, use regulation 8A, I don't know what the 9 in parentheses mean. Subsection 9, thank you. And Section 11A and Article 9, Administration and Enforcement Section 64B, subsection 3, as set forth in the handout entitled May 7th, 2022 Annual Town Meeting Zoning Bylaw Technical Corrections, Article 25, also on file with the town clerk, or take any action in relation thereto.
He's gonna beat that one.
Do we have a motion to place?
Couple things, Mr. Chairman. Again, I think that should say May 7th, 2020.
One.
No, it shouldn't.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
that's
I was thinking fiscal. I'm sorry.
No.
Sorry.
But the correction, we should make that Article 19.
That'll be
one,
19.
But
yes.
I think,
Yeah,
Unless we're moving it.
well, yeah, we'll correct them all when we're done going through them as we were moving.
Great.
So do I have a motion to place?
Yeah, so moved.
Do I have a second?
wait 1 second.
Any discussion?
Norm, is this located on the planning board's page on the town website?
I do not know.
There's not a lot of,
Then could I ask that you send me a copy of it so that I could have it for our meeting when we go through it?
I have a copy.
Karen, I just checked and it is on their page.
Thank you very much.
So you already have it on your page.
She's faster.
I have it here.
She's letting us know what's going
Why are
on.
you taking?
Thanks, Tamika.
She's keeping us in line.
I gotta keep you in line, Darren.
I know, you're doing a good job.
All right, roll call on 25.
Benoit, aye?
Whitman, I.
And Nichols, aye.
This guy's
So, Mr. Chairman, that should be 19.
Right, but we're gonna go through them as numbered, and then they'll have to be renumbered when we set the warrant.
Can somebody just make a note that whatever the to make sure that Dave George knows whatever the handout is, that it needs to, because he references an article numbered handout, so that just
Oh,
his
yeah.
handout gets updated with whatever
So
article
Gary,
is
can you make
followed.
a note on that?
extra copy there?
I have the number in the office if you want this one.
So Gary, just to make sure that when we replace the numbers, that this article that refers to the article, Dave George knows that, and that's changed. Now we decide on Article 26, to see if the town will vote pursuant to provisions GLC 4453E and a half, as most recently amended to establish fiscal year 2022 spending limits for revolving funds listed in Section 6 of Bylaw of the same name, all as set forth below, with such expenditure limits to be applicable for each fiscal year until such time as town meeting votes prior to July 1st in any year to change the same for the ensuing fiscal year, provided, however, that at the request of the entity authorized to expend such funds, the Board of Selectmen, with the approval of the Finance Committee, may increase such limits for that fiscal year only, all set forth below.
so moved.
Well, do we want to go through this? Because there are some new ones here that we don't know that we've had town, so you can still move it. For dis-
Yeah.
Do
I
you
was
want
gonna
a
say, I
second
just
for
had a comment.
discussion?
I was gonna second for discussion, it should be fiscal year 2023.
Oh, yep. Make that correction. And do we have a second for discussion, or second?
I seconded for discussion,
Oh,
so
okay.
that I can.
So the concern is that there has been a question on the RDIC, and I'm not even sure on the other, there's 3 new ones. There's the Earthworks Board, the RDIC, and the Zoning Board of Appeals, which are all new revolving accounts.
So, on the IDIC, how did, this was never brought to us as a board to be put on there, has it?
Well, actually, Mike had called me and asked about it being placed.
Yeah, but
But-
the board itself
Well, I know,
didn't talk
but-
about it.
Right, but I guess it is now, and I know that.
Okay, then I wanna,
And Becky sent us information just from what she had on it,
Yeah, well-
through an email,
I
so we were aware of it, but.
I wanna remove that section of it in this,
But was Earthworks Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals brought to the board?
I know the zoning board of appeals, there was a lot of
Yeah, there was a lot
discussion
of
on
discussion on
that.
that. What
So-
about the Earthworks Board?
I had not heard of that until just
Right.
tonight. The only new one I knew about was the RDIC, that there was discussion on that one. But that we were waiting for legal review.
Right, and I
on
know
that
with
one.
the zoning board, because there was an issue with, funding with that, it was obviously brought to the board.
then I'll make a motion that we remove earthwork boards and RDIC from this revolving accounts.
I guess, I don't know if I was.
Because, why, go ahead, you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I don't know if I was on the email from Becky for any sort of insight or justification. Like, I caught the tail end of RDIC's meeting, I think, when they were discussing it. I don't know anything about Earthworks.
Earthworks was
You-
written.
I think I'll agree with Skippy, but I think that if you don't have legal review on those 3 new ones, once again, we're going down a slippery slope here. Why would you guys extend yourself out to a problem if you don't know that answer?
Right, and I thought we were waiting for an answer on RDIC, because I know that Dan had asked about it and Becky had asked about it, and I don't know if, to be honest, we don't know if an answer came through and this board never was told. Because this isn't something that was brand
Do
new.
all 3 until you find out what the answer is.
Darren, this, the new Article 18, which was the old Article 20, the one Mr. Crane talked about, that's the one that pertains to these amounts and these revolving fund amounts, including Earthworks, who, I guess that's Peter Crane.
Yep.
And the others, which we do have, we did have something from Mr. Sullivan, I don't remember who sent it from, Dave Surratt maybe, from ZBA? And that's what I was told, and Mr. Crane is the one that actually came to me for this. And
I guess my question is, and I understand where you're going, I understand your point, and I agree with you. My only question is, did we get legal review if these are okay to have revolving accounts?
I don't care if they're okay or not, I don't think some of them should have it, I don't, you know.
The
The town-
Also,
Sure.
Carol, the description needs to change, because these aren't necessarily programs. It can be fees that get paid in, like the planning board doesn't have programs. They have fees that get charged, that go into there, and that's where they get paid out of.
Where are you? Is
The
it in the
description. Yeah, it's in the description.
Well, because it says that generally by a particular program and not taxpayers.
Particular programs and fees?
And fees,
Yeah.
right, yeah,
And/or fees?
yeah. Because I was gonna say, a lot of these are more fees versus, the only
Well,
two that
especially
are.
like the zoning board. you know,
Right, that's all
everything goes with
fees.
tax title.
Planning board is fees.
I would think that legal review on zoning board of appeals would be very similar to, like, planning board and all the other.
Right, because there's fees coming
Right.
in, and so
Right.
that's the whole
So I
thing,
would
that
assume
would make
there's no
sense.
problem there. The RDIC, I think, is where the legal review would be
Right,
required.
and I don't
because
think
that
anybody
seems-
knows what Earthworks even is.
No, I don't know what it is.
Well,
I mean,
it's that new bylaw, Peter Crane could tell you, moving earth around, in and out of town, and stripping, or you might as well call it mining, if you wanna call it that, you know.
So who's managing the revolving fund?
The Earthworks board,
That
I
would
would
be the
assume.
earthwork board itself, which would be,
Full board that's representation from like,
Peter's still here?
yeah, I don't know if he's still there.
Is Peter still here, do you know?
he might be in
Oh,
Cape.
the door's closed.
I don't know if he went in.
Either come back,
He in the room stomping his feet.
I can go get them. I want the earthworks for
So I mean, if the concern of the board is that we haven't received actual review from council, then, I mean, like I said, some seem obvious, but they still weren't reviewed.
Well, I know Dan had no problem with the zoning board of appeals. I don't know, I didn't know anything about Earthworks, so I didn't ask Dan about that. I did ask Dan about RDIC, because it was brought to my attention, and he said he referred it to legal. So I would say if the accountant is unsure, we should be making sure that it is a legitimate use of funds for RDIC.
Considering that legal reviewed the bylaw change that enabled them and had no comments about it other than adding specific words to the use of the funds, my suspicion is that, but I can't say, I'm not trying to speak for a lawyer, but no objection was raised to any of the funds that are on the list.
I think the question was, what is the Earthworks Board revolving fund for?
Because we incur costs every time we have a hearing, and we do not have a budget.
And you're saying this was in the bylaw that was reviewed by council? How was
Yes.
Earthworks? And they reviewed that bylaw and came back with no comment?
Correct.
The Earthworks bylaw or the Revolving Funds bylaw?
Revolving funds.
I didn't hear you.
Did it come, did it need to come to the select board? Because I think the zoning board requested.
We were made aware of the zoning board,
Yeah.
as was the select board, because I know they came and spoke to you. Tamika brought it to you guys.
Couple of times we talked.
RDIC talked to us about the budget, but not about the revolving fund.
Yeah, I don't remember hearing about it.
Well, he mentioned he'd like one.
Yeah.
yeah, he was kind of working towards that.
Right, and then,
And he did mention to me, and I do believe he sent, there was information, but there was a question as to what type of a fund they would be able to have.
the 53.5 was going to fit.
Right. I don't know.
Mike Sullivan sent the request to KP on 29th of March, and we still have not heard anything, so I think we are having a little disconnect with KP.
I don't understand. We're getting nothing back.
So I'm wondering when the revolving fund thing bylaw was updated, because I don't remember, when we saw it in select board, I don't remember having all of these choices, but then it's since been reviewed by legal to include the new ones. So
So I'll still say, I'll amend my motion to remove, if you, all these three new ones, and zoning board of appeals, IDIC, and Earthworks, until we get back from the lawyers and place it at a later date. I mean, we're gonna sit here all night long, bat this thing around like, and,
Well-
but anybody else, but I do work, and I think everybody else does.
Well, there's, like you just said, though, the zoning board one came up quite a bit. We talked about that one quite a bit already, because they don't have any other money
But if it has
to do what they have to do. Like the planning board, same idea as what the planning board.
But I don't think that one is or has gone to legal, because it wasn't, the RDIC was pushed to legal from Dan. Zoning
Dan
Board of
didn't have a
Appeals was
question
not.
about the zoning board of appeals, because
Right.
because he was involved in all those, so.
Perfect, thank you.
Well, we never got a response on that, which I don't understand. 'Cause you said that was.
So Earthworks, you guys would charge a fee,
Yes.
and that fee's gonna go in there, and then from there, you're gonna pay for everything.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I know.
How did it get this far? We didn't hear about it.
You really don't wanna get into that.
You're already looking at the
I mean, I
clock.
think the board has to
No,
take a
I-
position, either we place some that are, how can we place some that weren't reviewed and others that weren't? I mean, it's either,
Well, Earthworks, we don't know anything about, so we didn't know if it needed to go to, we don't know if it's gone to Dan, don't know if it's gone to.
It's the first time we've seen it,
Yeah,
so we
I
have
said-
no idea about
Us
Earthworks,
well.
period.
And then RDIC was reviewed by Dan, but kicked to
To
KP,
KP.
but they
Kicked
haven't gotten
legal.
back to us.
And
Now it's
ZBA, we
quite a
don't
while
have.
ZBA, we didn't need to do anything other than get approval from Dan,
Mhm.
which we did. I remember taking that up
Yeah.
in a board meeting.
Yep.
So I'd say,
He was all for that one. He,
yeah, so, again, I don't think we should be
ZBA.
committing something
That's
that
right,
hasn't
the
been,
ZBA, and the other two we don't know about.
one hasn't been
Feel
brought up
comfortable
until
with that one,
this
Skip?
week.
I'm comfortable with that.
The ZBA we know, the other two were kinda, so, moving right along.
All right, so we need to make a decision to, how we're gonna move
Did
forward.
you make a motion, Skip?
Well, he removed all three.
I started and I
Hey
amended
guys,
it
I don't mean to
twice.
interrupt, but initially, Skip made a motion and Leah seconded to place them. So if you're gonna change it, you have to rescind that first.
Well, did we play, for discussion though, right?
Just for
Tamika?
discussion.
Yeah.
I think Leah's was for discussion.
Yeah.
Well, Peter can correct me. Technically, making the motion in the second allows for discussion, but the motion itself wasn't to have a discussion. It was to
Okay.
place the articles and then have a discussion. But Peter, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Right.
Tamika, this is all okay because they can amend their motion in the second.
Right.
Okay,
As
got
they
it.
move on.
So
Rescind.
Or do you want to amend?
I amended it. I amended to take out and remove. I said 3, but we could leave zoning board of appeals in there, remove RDIC, and Peter can live 6 months without earthwork board money
I believe it's a year.
a year.
Yes, because these have to be appropriated at annual. They
Okay.
can't be appropriated for the
Can-
year.
can you manage
The amount
a
to
year?
be changed, but they have to be initially appropriated at annual. So, can we? Depends on how many applications we get.
So you come to Board of Selectmen and say you didn't give me the money, so we need it now? That's all.
So your amendment is to take out Earthworks and RDIC?
Yep.
Because we haven't heard any
Right,
legal
from
or Dan
legal on those.
input or
And
anything.
they're totally new entities to make sure that they're even applicable for the 53E, I think was the concern, but, all right, so,
Whitman will amend my second to.
okay. Any other discussion? All right, roll
Clock
call.
eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman, aye.
And Nichols' eye, as amended. Article 27, to see if the town will vote to accept Teresa Drive as a town public way as laid out by the select board and recommended by the planning commission.
it's
All
not
as-
the planning commission, it's the planning board.
Huh?
Planning board.
We're on strikes again.
I'm sorry, that's
No,
going to go by the wayside. It's the planning board.
The planning board, all as detailed below, and to authorize the select board to acquire by gift, purchase, or eminent domain land or rights in land within said way as so laid out for all purposes for which public ways are used in the town of Rutland. Further land description, land known as Teresa Drive from its beginning at station 00+00 to station 4+25 on a plan entitled Definitive Open Space Plan Maple Hill Estates, dated April 3rd, 2019, scale 1 inch equals 40 feet, prepared by James Kalach, PLS, New England Environmental Design LLC, recorded in Plan Book 949, Plan 96, the first plan. Guarantor also hereby conveys to the town the water, sewer, and drainage facilities within the roadway premises. Now, is this one of the ones that had some minor, was this one of the streets?
Yes.
Okay, and is it 100%?
At this point, we have not gotten a final inspection report from our engineer. My guess would be yes. I know the two major things on Teresa Drive were the spillway construction on the detention pond, which I know has been done. And I believe, Joe, I think, was it you that mentioned that they had put the loom, they did the loom along the sidewalks?
I think that got done.
Yeah.
I think you can place it.
So that's basically it.
I'll make a motion to place.
And you would have second?
I'll second my own motion.
If I can read Leah's mind, it's like we've just said no to other things that weren't complete.
Well, I mean,
But we
Joe,
just had the
Joe
highway
and Norm
superintendent
said that
say it
they
was.
That's-
believe
that's
it's gonna be
fine, I
that
just-
long.
And is this isn't the one from last, is this the
No,
one
this
from
isn't the
last
one
year?
from last year, no. I mean, if Norm, hearing from Norm and as planning board chair and Joe as DPW director, if they feel confident that it's good, then I'm okay with the second.
Well, good.
All right, any other discussion? Roll call.
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman, aye.
And Nichols, aye. Article 28, excuse me. To see if the town will vote to accept Woodside Ave and Sedona Circle as town public ways as laid out by the select board and recommended by the planning board. Karen say? Yep.
Just a quick thing. If you'll note in these two articles, it is referring to the select board, and a lot of other articles on the warrant is the board of select.
I am, as a note, I'm changing them to Board of Selectmen because I believe it was a bylaw that we just nixed putting them on that would make us the selectmen, select board rather.
So,
It will be
as a
Board of
note, not all
Selectmen.
articles will be referred to Board of Selectmen. All right. Below, and authorize the Board of Selectmen, guys are making it difficult for me, to acquire by gift purchase or eminent domain land or rights in land within said ways as laid out for all purposes for which public ways are used in the town of Rutland. Further land description, land known as Woodside Ave from its beginning at station 50+24.12 at the center line of Sharnock Hill Road, a public way to station 35+50.00 on a plan entitled Amended Definitive Plan, Bryce Lemon Estates, Rutland, Mass, dated March 28, 2014. Scales 1 inch equals 200 feet and 1 inch equals 40 feet, prepared by James Kalach, PLS, and engineer, recorded in Plan Book 913, Plan 67, the first plan. B, the parcel of land known as Sedona Circle from its beginning at station 0+00 at the center line of Woodside Avenue to its terminus in a cul-de-sac at station 5+74.03 on a plan entitled Amended Definitive Plan, Bryce Lemon Estates, Rutland, Mass, dated March 28, 2014, scales 1 inch equals 200 feet and 1 inch equals 40 feet, prepared by James Keller, PLSPE, recorded in Plan Book 913, Plan 67, the first plan. Grantor also hereby conveys to the town the water, sewer, and drainage facilities within the roadway premises.
So where does this stand now?
This is a redo of the vote taken at the last annual town meeting. The town already voted to accept this portion of the subdivision. However, there is a time limit, I think it's like 120 days after the town meeting vote, that there are certain documents regarding easements and that sort of thing that have to be signed.
Just because I had to
filed,
correct you,
and that never
don't
happened.
start on me.
I believe this town council has said that the only way to rectify that is we have to re-accept it at this town meeting.
Don't I know it?
So it's a corrective article.
So, motion in place.
Do I have a second?
Whitman seconds.
Any discussion? Roll
Clock
call.
eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman, aye.
And Nichols, aye. Article 29, to see if the town will vote to accept Woodside Ave and Oakley Circle as town public ways as laid out by the Board of Selectmen and recommended by the planning board. All as detailed below, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire by gift, purchase, or eminent domain land or rights in land within said ways as laid out for all purposes for which public ways are used in the town of Rutland. Further land descriptions, land known as Woodside Ave from its beginning at station 35 plus 50.00 to station 27 plus 00 on a plan entitled Amended Definitive Plan, Bryce Lemon Estates, Rutland, Massachusetts, dated March 28, 2014. Scale 1 inch equals 200 feet and 1 inch equals 40 feet, prepared by James Collick, PLSPE, recorded in the plan book 913, plan 67, the first plan. B, the parcel shown as Millbrook Circle, known as Oakley Circle, from its beginning at station 0 plus 00 at the center line of Woodside Ave to its terminus in a cul-de-sac at station 2 plus 60.00 on a plan entitled Amended Definitive Plan, Bryce Lemon Estates, Rutland, Massachusetts, dated March 28, 2014, scales 1 inch equals 200 feet plus 1 inch equals 40 feet, prepared by James Collick, PLSPE, and recorded in Plan Book 913, Plan 67, the first plan. Grantor also hereby conveys to the town the water, sewer, and drainage facilities within the roadway premises. And where do we stand on this?
Same situations with Teresa Drive. We have, the planning board has given a conditional favorable recommendation. At this point, there were still a couple of very, very minor things, including seeding of the grass strips between the sidewalks and the roadway, a little bit of asphalt chipped away around some bolts on the fire hydrants, a little bit of leveling at the junction of the sidewalk at some driveways. There was a quarter of an inch lip that our engineer said should be patched. I'm going to guess with the weather conditions right now, that probably has all been done. It couldn't be done at the time of our last inspection because the weather just wasn't good enough yet. And asphalt plants were not open.
Joe, are you aware of any of this work being done or not?
Yes,
It has all been done, or?
to the best of my knowledge, yep.
Motion, please.
Whitman seconds.
Any discussion?
Aye.
Roll call.
Whitman, aye.
Nichols, aye. Article 30, to see if the town will vote MGL Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22G, in any city or town that accepts this clause, real estate that is the dominical of a person but is owned by a trustee, conservator, or other fiduciary for the person's benefit, if the real estate would be eligible for exemption under Clause 22nd A, 22nd B, 22nd C, 22nd D, 22nd E, or 22nd F in the person where the owner of the real estate. If the person were the real owner of the real estate. I can't wait to hear Randy read that one.
There's gonna be a few bushes, we might as well already admit that.
At least I'm giving it a first go through, so I and do
Did
it.
this come from Karen as veterans agent, or does anybody? I just see the description that this article removes the trustee stipulation from the veterans exemption. That's. I just wasn't sure how it came in.
Do we know the origin of this article? Gary, do we know?
I do not.
I don't like,
I guess my only
the
question
veterans are getting screwed bad enough. I mean, you're gonna remove some of their exemptions? That's
No,
what
it
it looks like to
removes
me.
the trustee stipulation.
Yeah, but
Right.
So.
I know some trustees, they were not have trustees.
So this gives them, so they'd be eligible for exemption.
Well, the law already allows the exemption,
Right.
but if I'm getting up in my age and I put my home in a family trust, I'd lose my exemption as a veteran because I'm trying to protect my asset for my family. So this basically allows the person to continue as a veteran to get the exemption that they're already getting just because of the way the real estate has been transferred to a trust. So there's really no financial impact to the town.
My question is, usually when we accept some of these things, other things may be dominoed. You seem, either you're reading really well or you're familiar.
I'm very familiar with it.
Okay.
Yes.
Are we setting ourselves up for any other, if the town accepts this, then we're also accepting all of these other maybe
We've already accepted,
septic.
we've already accepted the veteran exemption already. This is basically allowing the property that they own, that's in a trust. The condition is they still must be living in this home. And this probably came up because we have a veteran in town that is transferring their property into a trust, and this came up through the assessor's office.
So this allows them to continue with their
with
benefit, so
their
it's
benefit,
obviously
yep.
benefiting the veteran.
So it's, that's, to Skip's point, it's veteran friendly.
Friendly, right,
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah.
Motion, please.
Whitman seconds.
Okay, any other?
Thanks for the clarification.
Thank you. Roll call?
Clock eye.
Whitman, aye.
And votes aye. Article 31, to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash to account 001-2105850-000 to make the first year lease payment on a police cruiser.
We don't have anybody left in free cash, do we?
I have questions about this, because I
Amount, yeah.
thought the part of the deal with the previous, with Ron, was that he had pulled this out from under the tax levy out of the budget, but then to keep up with the commitment that town had made to keep new vehicles in rotation, it was going to be funded from free cash, but there's no free cash now.
This was pulled out, Liam, and then it was obviously put back in, and the total line item for that, for the police cruiser leases is roughly $49,000. So there's still another 18 for one of the cruisers and an additional 12 for the second cruiser. And this is the new one that's already here that is also 18,666, which for the budget was entered as 49,000 and change for the three. But it was pulled out. You're correct in saying that. It was pulled out. Now it's trying to be putting it back in.
Yep. Is the vehicle already here and we've already made a year's worth of payments or something on it?
This is
or-
for the first year payment of the
Okay.
lease. So obviously if you don't make the first year payment, it goes bye-bye.
Yeah, we had, I mean, way back when, Karen, didn't we say that we were going to keep this as a revolving part of the budget, but then did the police department pull it out?
I think Ron pulled it out.
Ron pulled
That
this
was all Ron
in the
did.
firefighter turnout
Turnout
gear
gear.
out of the budget.
To balance it.
To balance it.
Mhm.
And his
Which makes no
intention
sense.
was if additional revenue came in, he was put it back into the budget. But no additional revenue had come in, so,
And it was listed as free cash
correct.
item. Or they, I should say, they were listed as free
I
cash.
remember specifically stating that this was not
Right.
balancing the budget, it was simply moving it.
Right.
Well, we're still using free cash to balance the budget, so it's really no different, which is very frustrating.
Right.
Lease payment is an operating account. The lease should be paid
Correct.
as part of your operating.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we talked about that a long time ago, haven't we?
Yes.
So this obviously is not in your current budget.
That is not in our budget.
Should be.
Did the finance committee agree that they would allow it to be taken out of the budget?
Do you want me to answer? No.
Well, the budget was already not balanced, so.
Right, we didn't really have much of a choice.
Well, we just took the information, we haven't.
Right, we haven't officially.
Well, no, but you have the right to make your own
Yes, we do.
changes.
However, there isn't a plethora of money to add to the budget.
Right, I mean, if you had
So-
had to put this back in, it would have to come out from somewhere else.
Right,
Right.
And that has not been discussed.
that is correct.
And since it's already balanced by $120,000 in free cash, of which we do not have,
No, we have the 125.
Yeah.
not after snow and ice.
No, we've taken the 125 out. That's not available except for the budget. Snow and
Right,
ice,
that-
we won't
right,
worry
that
about.
account- that amount's
However
not
you
there.
look at it, we
Yes.
still don't have enough money to pay for everything.
Correct.
we
That's
need.
correct.
Right, okay. Whatever the case.
Can I ask
His
another
hand or that
question?
hand, which it,
Related to this? Money that we don't have? How did you guys decide to pay for the interim TA, just so I know where that, kinda put that in my mind, not that, I think that an interim TA is a great idea, and
We had discussions with Dan that there would be money that would be transferred next month
okay.
that he had available to.
And then ARPA funds for the new fiscal year.
Why don't we do that for these things then?
I just have a serious concern about using ARPA funds for continuing expenses. I think there should be one, like, an interim town administrator is, hopefully, a one-shot deal until the next time. But, we should not be using ARPA funds for continuing.
Yep.
Similar to
expenses.
using free cash for,
Right.
yeah, same idea.
Well, I think it's even worse, because, free cash comes from revenues that we did collect, but this ARPA funds is just like a gift kind of floating around there that we're spending money, and that's,
Well, it depends on whose money you wanna spend, right? You're
What's all
spending
of
the
it?
town's money with free cash, you're spending the federal government's money with ARPA money.
Yeah, but we're gonna
That's
find
still
uses
not
for the ARPA money, whether it's
To fix something permanent, not just temporary.
maintenance
for the last 3
improvements,
years.
there's plenty of things that
yeah,
can be done.
it's things that can be one-time expense.
I hope.
If I may, there's some additional, it looks like there's some additional free cash, articles, and so I would like to get a handle as to, in the articles, how much free cash is being proposed for use. I see Article 33 is a sum of money from free cash to highway admin.
That first one.
116 is all we had left.
Right,
Then-
and that's its,
34 is water and sewer retained earnings.
35 is free cash.
35 is free cash for the firefighter turnout gear, which I think had generally been under the budget. I
It
think,
needs to stay in the budget next time.
right. and-
So it's
Plus,
not, it's
plus,
a continual
a
line item.
cruiser
for
lease.
I'm not saying,
33 is 16.
16,000, and the turnout gear is 10,000.
that's only gonna do us 3, and we really need to be doing 7 more.
Article 35 would be the 10,000.
So that would put us at 6 plus 49,
Where's that calculator, Ricky?
75-ish, right? 26 plus 49.
It's gonna come back to the snow and ice, the very first article,
Or was there-
you're gonna have to go to stabilization.
Right.
You're gonna have to.
What is the amount for the
Or ARPA funds.
seasonal?
Or-
16.
And that's for this summer?
Yep.
But isn't some of wasn't that part of the 300th, their plan was to do a lot of, like, groundwork? Wasn't that part of what they
Not mowing
requested
lawns.
funding for?
Not mowing lawns.
Well, they were gonna clean up,
They're gonna trim hedges and plant flowers and all that type of stuff.
They're gonna make the
I
town
assume.
beautiful.
Joe's not saying nothing down there.
Not my
You didn't get raked into it yet?
right, it says for
Say
the
that again,
summer, but
please.
then
Is that a pun?
that's still a
Is that on
continuing,
purpose?
that's still like a
Raked into
continuing
it.
job, and you always cut grass.
Raked
down.
is the right word.
So I think that
It wasn't budgeted last year, and it's
Don't
not
cut the
budgeted
grass.
again
I
this
didn't know
year.
where he was going with
Lyndon,
that.
it
Huh?
wasn't budgeted last year, it's not budgeted this year.
What?
Cutting grass. Volunteers will be cutting grass.
last year was all
Well, no, I mean,
volunteers.
that, it was not specifically budgeted, but right, that's just goes into general town maintenance.
General town maintenance has been cut.
Right, I'm just saying. But it's something that's a continuing job, it's not a one-time job.
I agree.
Right, I think these 3 things are all things that should be in the budget,
Right.
but they haven't been in order to get,
The other side of the budget, right? It's a double-edged sword,
Right.
unfortunately.
right,
And you're gonna get cut from the back, you're gonna get cut
Right.
from the front.
right.
So now we've through some magical accounting, we've taken it out of the front side, and now we're gonna pay for it on the back
Well,
side.
that's not balancing the budget when you take out things that need to be.
I don't even think it's magical. I don't think there's any magic going on.
I mean, if you're gonna, these should have been left in, and if you're gonna cut anything that you wanted to use ARPA funds, it's like maintenance, like some of the funding in some of the departments for maintenance we used for ARPA funds and bring some of these things up to where they should be, but
I think part of the problem there is a lot of the money's not in the budget for those things too, is my understanding of it.
I was gonna
A couple months off the end of his salary, we'd be.
Well,
enough
when
money.
we suggested funding the fuel deficit or the energy deficit of the town with ARPA funds, the committee said, you have no choice because you can't deficit spend these accounts. It's just that simple. With the understanding that going forward, you'll have to levy the funds to meet those needs because they're not cuttable. I guess if you consider these other items similar, then you'd have to take the same tab.
I don't, because I mean, we justified the fuel costs because they increased substantially. Cutting grass has always been there, we just took it out. So I don't
But
think
you
it's,
could say
it's on
that-
the same level.
I actually agree with you. But the salt, that's gone up further than you could have recovered as well. You could probably cover some of the salt with ARPA using the same argument.
Right,
as
and
fuel.
I understand that material price is increasing, but the lease we've always had, we signed a lease, the grass we've always supposed to cut, whether we cut it or not, those kind of things didn't change. The turnout gear has always been, we've always been committed to pay for that, so those aren't things that I feel that ever should be pulled out. And they're not one-time expenses.
Last year, when budget cuts need to be made, the amount was given to Chief Monaco, and his choice was to not make cuts to personnel and to take out the vehicle lease.
And I object, I made a comment that I do not think that was a good idea.
I agree. However, that's what was done. I get it. Whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, the fact is, it's been done. It's what we were handed.
So he had a plan to use the Devereaux funds for that,
He
I
did
thought.
last year.
Okay.
That's not. At DPW, we did cut person hours. We cut roughly three full-time staffers in the summertime that do that work. We got pretty sizable hit, maybe $100,000.
Yep.
So we actually cut that service.
Right, that's what I'm saying, we did it, it wasn't like, it wasn't unexpected, it wasn't like we had control, we made that choice, good or bad. The increase in fuel and the increase of salt,
It's just that much more on
right,
top of
was not,
where we're going.
right, and it was
Yeah.
not something that we,
Well, it's not controllable.
right, was not controllable. We made the decision to not pay the other things. That's
We've
my
had the
concern.
summer help in the budget every year since I've been here, and it's been cut every time in the hearings before it gets to this point. We were just hoping to get some extra help, that's all.
Right, and it's, I'm not saying it's not justifiable, I'm
No,
just
I
saying it's not a,
I know that.
yeah.
I mean, this was-
I don't know how we're gonna vote on things we don't have money for, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And things that need to be paid for.
Oh, look at me. I can't
Right.
Hey, there we go. There's
You're
money.
slave. With
Well,
your
we can-
big sales.
an option here, it may not be a good one, is we can take it out of free cash and we can increase the stabilization fund transfer for that other article to make it all work. I don't like that idea, but I think you're kinda, we're in a bad spot.
Or if the salt and fuel went to ARPA, and ARPA covered the 240 or whatever the heck the number was, then we'd have the 120-ish.
It's a shell game, but we gotta
Yeah.
figure out how to get there, right?
And the lease is not 49, it's 18,666.
No, you're saying the budget amount
The
right
line
now
item
is-
was 49.
Right, exactly. It's only 18.
Yeah, yeah.
Why was it 40, oh, because that's the whole 3 year? Yeah.
No, it's 3 vehicles.
Oh, 3 vehicles, so.
That's what it was, yeah, because this is year 1.
Year one for this one, the other ones are probably
The
year
other
2
ones
and
are-
year 3 or
I don't know
something.
how old, stuff I don't know how old the other people
Those
are.
three articles are
They're
usually
supposed to rotate them every 3 years.
Stabilization,
Add money
extended
to it.
employee benefits.
Yeah.
The 12,000 is the last
Mhm.
payment on one, I think. The other 18 is the second payment on the other, and this is the first.
Is that a different time of year?
No, that's usually the end.
So Tommy just brought
But I
up,
know
there's
what you're saying.
usually, the amounts, that you're gonna love this, there's usually articles for adding money to stabilization per our debt and financial policies, OPEB, and there's one other one,
Yeah, what's
and those are missing.
Doesn't
Capital
doesn't
stabilization.
that usually
Those are
happen?
fall town meeting.
That's fall.
We've
That's
already
special
done that
town
this
meeting.
year.
Yeah, it's, it's part of fall town meeting.
Okay, we just spend out other free cash every year. Is that what we do?
Yeah.
I thought every,
No, that's at the annual town meeting, it's
Thought-
part of the regular
Well,
budget.
actually, it was definitely at the fall town meeting because I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
At the
because you
last
take
one I was
5% of
in.
free cash, available free
Right,
cash.
because that's when we get the final
Okay,
numbers.
that's fine.
Whether that's how it's done every year, I don't know, but it was definitely done at
Because
the
yeah, we
fall.
don't have
Definitely
we don't have
not.
the numbers.
Push
so
it
we
off
know
to the
what
fall.
we're-
I don't know. It's not important. I just want to make sure that we, when he said it, I was like, yeah, we usually do something with that.
Well, we need to move forward, so how's the board? I mean, there's certain things like we're committed to a lease, right? We can't not pay it.
Well, it would just get taken back, right?
Like,
And
So
we
would
get
the
bikes,
police, would the police take it
bicycles
away
out.
from themselves and
Probably get taken
repossess
back
it?
right
No, the leasing company will take care of that.
It's like- it's-
I don't,
I know that was my concern from day one, and I asked the question, and I said, where are we going to get these funds? I asked Ron at least
3 times a year.
several times. Because I knew we only had 241 to begin with, and 125 is going to the budget.
there was supposed to be some extra money.
Well,
Extra
I
money
mean,
doesn't
I
come
guess the
until.
only thing I can say that we could just add the options for ARPA and
Stabilization.
stabilization, just to keep them all open. There's certain things we're gonna have to do, but and obviously going forward next year, these required expenses can't be pulled out of the budget.
Well, you're exactly right. Like, I would even go a step further and have that first lease payment, I would go a little further out of ARPA and pay the entire amount for that one cruiser. Because you're gonna go through this again next year.
Well, yeah, if we pull that out, that will at least put us in a better place going.
It's a decision of
next
the
year.
committee, Joe, I mean. it's
No
a decision
better,
of the committee.
not a better, it's
No,
just
no,
less.
I
but,
mean, if you're gonna have that cruiser next year and you go through the same issue.
and that, we
payment
kinda
number
made
two.
that commitment, so that's why I got
Right.
irritated when even
Let's talk
the
about it.
chief wanted to pay it out of the other, we decided to put that in the budget as a revolving continuous expense.
The finance committee received a balanced budget from the town administrator. This is what we were dealt with.
But the finance committee can change it. at
Yes,
their
we
will.
can. There was,
There was some, yeah.
you know,
I think we should spend federal money before we spend taxpayers' money, which is the same.
So, is the board agreeable that we just add in those options? And, I mean, there's no other way of doing it, because we can't spend free cash we
What
don't
is, no,
have.
but I
Well,
just
we
wonder
don't,
what the
we don't
balance
need
is.
to go to the town for ARPA money, so I don't think we need to include the ARPA line. If we decide to go ARPA, we could just make,
The article will go
the
away.
article can go away.
Right. I mean,
So,
I think we
if we're
just
gonna use
cap
ARPA
it.
money, why are we putting this out?
that's what we're saying, we can take the articles out
So-
completely.
So remove this, I'll make a motion to remove Article 31.
I mean, and we're all kind of all committed to doing that. Does the board agree that that's the,
so,
I guess before we do that though, just for,
Yeah.
I don't know, but is there any requirements for what ARPA money is spent on, and will those qualify as ARPA money?
There's no more
yeah,
qualifications.
we've been told we can use it at will. And like I said, I don't like the fact we're using it for, continuous expenses, but we can't not do it.
Thank you. That question was, Madam Chair.
it was mentioned on Monday's, select board, Chief Knight came in and told us how much we had, and I can't
We have
remember what it was.
1.2 million, right?
Yeah.
And the second payment's coming in August.
August, yeah.
Yeah.
We were
So,
just,
I mean,
we were
there-
just suggesting, maybe, sorry to interrupt you, we consider a cap. Because it is one-time money, that's all.
That's still one time, it's still one time.
No, I mean, a cap for what you want to spend for operating, recovering the problems with this year's operating budget.
Right. Well, I mean,
Gotta balance
I
it.
want to keep it as minimal as possible. I don't, like I said, I don't feel comfortable that we should be.
Okay, so let's throw this out. If we had to wait until fall town meeting to spend this free cash, is this gonna cause us any issues?
when's the lease payment due?
I
Is
don't
that
know.
what, is that what
I'm
you're
asking that, I'm asking for the turnout gear, I'm asking for all of them.
Well,
The seasonal help's not gonna do us any good, I get that, because you need that during the summer. And I'm not saying that's a good idea to not have turnout gear or
Right.
the I understand all of that.
But when is the bill due?
Right, when do you need to purchase like turnout gear? When is that?
Well, last year's budget, no turnout gear was bought.
I know.
Because completed that, so I haven't bought it in 2 years.
I know,
Oh.
I'm with
There
you.
you go.
So I should be
That's the
having
answer.
14 sets.
Right.
Yep.
Instead of 3. So,
I mean, we really should consider getting at a corrective. All that stuff, I thought, those aren't things we pull out. I don't understand. I just, I mean, I understand,
But so
but
it-
it's just.
This was something that last year, the finance committee took a lot of hits when we had to take it out of the budget. And then this year, when it was handed to us, it was, oh, don't worry, this will be taken care of. Oh, don't worry about it, this will be taken.
So
This
we
is-
need to do some very
This-
corrective actions that we need to make sure going forward.
This is a little bit of my whole point, though, is last year it was cut people or cut stuff. And we
Right.
can have stuff, but no people to use it, or we can have people, but no stuff for those people to use or whatever. And nobody wants to talk about a 2.5, but we need to understand what else has been cut from the budget over years of cuts and what else has been pulled out that we owe as a commitment to our employees, to our residents, to everybody that should be funded, and what that real cost is, and then go forward. Because I don't know how we can continue to do this.
You can't, you really can't continue to do this.
I mean, the problem is that
This year's
we did do an
1.2
override for municipal departments, and it got sucked up pretty quick.
The
And that's-
following year,
Right, and
got
that's
all.
the concern, there's no trust, that every time we increase and do an override to try to support the departments, all of a sudden it gets sucked into the school.
Yep.
And that's why people, you can't get the support a lot of the time, is because people don't, they never see it ever getting any better. Anytime we try to get more money in, it just seems to make, we still have made cuts continuously,
Right.
even with the override.
And now this year, we have next fiscal year, 2023, starting in July, we have a new superintendent for the school district. Has there ever been honest to goodness conversations with the school in a roundtable, not the annual roundtables, but what does it take for the schools to get what they legitimately need, or what transparency and everything? So school funding is part of town life.
No,
I mean,
everyone understands that.
I understand and I hear that side of the argument also. But so because that has happened, we're going to continue to not fund our town services and pull and just perpetuate this issue. And a lot of the things that I think we have happening now have been happening for the buildings and everything because it's been years of cuts that we haven't had the money to address because the free cash has gone to cover things, either to cover the budget or to cover things that have been pulled out of the budget. And so we're now at a time where we have additional costs hitting us because it's been years of inability to take
Right,
care of.
and that's why, I mean, especially when we're talking about the ARPA funds, I thought that was legitimate to correct all the repairs and the things that needed to be done to all the buildings, because that was something that's been neglected, is not, it's continuous to maintain them, but to catch up to where the building should be, that was a good use of ARPA funds. They talked about doing some kind of a bond for parking lots and this and that. I think that's a more reasonable thing to go to town to try to get an override or something to pay for that, but I think in the general maintenance of the buildings, I don't know that we're gonna get people that are gonna support an override to just put windows in or do
But I'm
siding
not talking
or
about that,
something.
I'm talking about
No, I know, but
the
I'm saying,
operating budget.
once we're trying to correct years' worth of
Right.
neglect.
Right.
And once we correct some of that, it hopefully helps us to be on more of a balanced road.
Yes, and I would love to see ARPA used for that, but now we're looking, here, we're looking at using ARPA, I mean, we're already talking about, to my point, like 150,000 here, 250,000 there, and suddenly we haven't done any project work, and we've just plugged holes but not addressed the long-term concerns of what is causing those holes, creating those holes.
And that's exactly
sustaining
what my
those holes.
frustration is, using it for these things that really should never have been pulled out.
I think to address, how to, with the new administration coming on with the schools, I think we need to meet with the Rutland's representatives of the school committee once they're on. They need to sit with us, I think, at least once a year, because they're not connecting the dots like we have. So they're
Yeah, that's why they want to
influenced
do it
by,
for next year.
you know, 4 other towns, and what
And
we imagine was the rhetoric or the narrative.
We've sat with them and they,
They just don't care, do they, Tom?
Well, I don't know.
Well,
if
let's
they-
say,
I don't
I
know
mean,
that they don't
hopefully we've
care.
got new
In their
people,
mind, they
so-
have a charge in its education, and that's where their mindset is. Just like a department wants to fight for their own funds. That's kind of where people's mindset is. So I can understand where they're coming from, but right, there's gotta be some level of reasonable discussion.
They don't care about our
but
concerns.
that's,
But
what,
we
all
get-
those things that Leah just said is the same circle that's been going around for years and years and years. And the bottom line is, unless there's a override and everybody, including in this room, wants to raise their taxes, we don't have the money coming in to support all this stuff. We can talk about all those different things all we want. It's not happening, and it
Right.
hasn't happened.
And I mean-
And like you just said, a couple of years ago, we had a big 2.5 override that got passed by the townspeople, and boom, the school comes in with a huge increase and it's gone.
And just like the town is struggling with the increases of fuels and all the other expenses and recession, every individual household is also.
Absolutely.
So they're not gonna not support, but they're not gonna maybe have the mindset that they can afford additional taxes when they're struggling to pay.
And this was my point last year, was then we need to make these cuts, and we can't be going after DPW or fire or police or our department or the library or council on aging because they're cutting hours, they don't have the staff to be on
So who
every
do you
single
go after?
thing.
Who do you go after? Try to do the override, like
No, I'm saying.
the school, you might as well forget.
No, I'm saying that if we're not gonna do an override, if town or we are not committed to funding the budget that we say at minimum we need to operate as we would like to operate, then this was what I said last year. We need to have hard conversations about where our priorities are. Okay, so we closed the library, we closed the council on the aging, we closed town hall, DPW continues to not mow the grass and get all the calls about it, and fire goes down, and I don't know, there's no other answer. I don't know what the answer is. If we're not gonna have a realistic conversation about it, then
If I may give my opinion,
No,
because you're
Darren, sorry,
absolutely.
Darren,
Oh,
Darren.
I'm sorry.
Couple quick things. We don't wanna touch the stabilization fund, because that helps our bond rating. That's given number one. Free cash, we don't wanna affect it, because that comes out of us. For lack of a better word, and some people in the room might not agree with me, ARPA money is like found money for us. Because until a couple of years ago, till the global pandemic, we didn't have it. Do I agree that I don't agree that we should spend it willy-nilly? We have not a choice but to spend all the ARPA money we can to balance our budget, in Darren's opinion, and to help us through this. We don't want to spend free cash. We got 1.2 there now. A couple months, we're gonna have another 1.9. God only knows what the government's gonna do for us down the road. I hope they keep it rolling, but I don't think we have another choice. As much as it's that we wanna buy some of these things, we have to use the ARPA money to get through this time, and then we have to come up with a plan, like Lyndon's saying, down the road, whether it's bonds, whatever, to right the ship. But for right now, I don't think you guys have any choice, and because there's no other way around this. You can't take stabilization. We don't want to touch that. That's an emergency. Oh my God, something bad happened. We can't free cash.
We don't have it.
We don't have it.
It's not there.
But, so spend the ARPA money begrudgingly and
And then
Pull
work
this-
to get back on track.
pull the Band-Aid off. You're gonna have to. There's no other way.
And I
That's the
fully
thing, it's a
agree that
Band-Aid.
we should use the ARPA funds. I'm just saying, I'm talking going forward, we need to
And
make
we
sure
agree
we don't
100%.
make
We
these
gotta
kind of
figure out a
choices, right.
plan going down the road, and
I
maybe
don't think
that's.
we have a choice but to use the ARPA money, at least for, and to use it towards a cruiser and to use it for gear for the fire department, those are certainly all legitimate purposes.
And to
It's
cut
just-
the grass is another legit, you know what I mean? There's all these things, you add them all up, it's death by 1,000 little ducks pecking at you. I mean, you gotta go for it, right?
So, I mean, I guess.
We're debating, to Skip's point, we're debating this back and forth.
Right, to death.
And we're not gonna get anywhere. You're gonna have to go for it. You keep it the best you can, you guys, and try to do your best, but I don't think you have a lot of choice in that.
So do you wanna just move forward and remove these articles and look at funding through ARPA and other means? There's no reason to place them if we feel that we want, there's no,
There's no sense to put on the warrant.
right, yeah, we
Right.
don't have the free cash, so why are we doing it?
There's
So-
no free cash
Right.
available, so I think we have no choice to either pull them, and then we can pull them and look at funding them via ARPA.
Right.
Or whatever.
So can I get a motion to
Do you
remove?
want us to?
Yeah, I
Gary,
think, if I
Oh,
may.
I'm sorry,
just-
Gary, go ahead.
And actually, I was gonna say pretty much Darren's opinion. I might have said Gary's opinion. But the total for those three articles, and one being that if you pay off the cruiser complete, the turnout gear and for Joe's seasonal help is $83,000.
So that turnout gear figure, is that to bring you up to what you
No.
did do last year?
It's only 3.
So what's,
It's only 3, he should be getting,
so then we should,
9.
how much is that?
No, he needs
How
like
much is
I was
what?
going by with the
I know,
ARPA.
but what do you have now? I mean, what do you have in here now for?
10.
10.
Three sets.
And so it's how much is for that?
10,000 for 3
$10,000.
Oh,
sets.
10,000, and that's
Yeah,
for
the 3
3.
sets, yes.
and you.
So I think we should bring it back to where it should have been. I shouldn't we do this, the 6 and bring it back to
Is
where
6
they,
the right
How many
number,
do
or
you
you up
need?
at 9 now?
well, at a minimum.
Well, it should be 7 a year, but, we can discuss it at the ARPA meeting and then bring it forward.
All
to
right,
the
but
Yeah.
but my hope is that we will bring you back up to a rotation that we
Yeah.
can continue on going forward, the same with the
So
cruiser.
The level.
With his
Right.
additional 3, Lyndon, that'll bring it up to $93,000 of ARPA funds for the complete payment of the cruiser, not just one, because you're gonna
Right.
run into this again next year.
Right.
So
And then-
pay off the 3-year payment plan,
But
buy
I
the
would,
6 turnout gears, and give Mr. Buckley a seasonal.
I would
Gary?
argue about the lease is to not do, I think we're doing stopgaps for this year, and it needs to be a regular line item. So
Right.
I would
So
say
just
keep
pay the
just the
one.
1 year and put it back in.
But if you, all right, I understand your point, but if you do that, you get rid of it, we don't have to worry about it for the next, we know it's a problem, right? But if we do this for the rest of it, it's gone for 2 years, that's one less pain
Do you
in
want your new town administrator to have to sit down with all the department heads and say who you're gonna lose? Because that's the only way you're gonna balance the budget?
I'm looking at it.
Because
from-
that's what the new town administrator is gonna be faced with. Let's cut to the chase. That's what the new town administrator is gonna have to do his first year, his or her first year. We don't want that. So try to eliminate as many of the problems that we can. It might not be right, but the only thing we've got left to cut is personnel.
Take
and we
the whole
can't-
budget, take the whole.
That's the only thing we've got is left is personnel to cut. We cut everything else to bare minimum.
I hear you. We have until 2025 to spend the ARPA money. So we could revisit this again next year regarding the lease. I mean, we're talking about a lease. I know we're not talking about a lot of money, but do we start the corrective action is, we can't pay for these things this year.
We're gonna use 200 and something for snow and ice.
That would reduce it to about $70,000.
I know it's
That
not,
would-
Gary?
it's not a lot, but
Gary,
I think it's
but I-
the principle of it
200,000
that
for
I'm.
snow and ice too.
I think this
Yeah, I
can,
know,
this
I
can all
understand. I know.
stay in the ARPA debate, have them make the recommendations. I mean, as a minimum, they'll cover these articles and have discussions on
Yeah.
whether trying to bring the departments to a reasonable level.
So-
I would just like to keep, if it's all paid out, whatever, just so that we know in the budget, even if we fund the entire lease, 3-year lease out of the budget, or out of ARPA, I still want a placeholder in the budget so that we, going forward, don't forget that
Oh, yeah.
we really should be accounting for this
These were
18 to
supposed to be
20,000.
permanent line items that should not be pulled out.
To
That's
get
great.
a true idea as to what the cost of town services are.
Just pay it while you got the quote free money, keep the budget there. You also, the other thing, we still have that 248 in the snow and ice, we should throw a lump in there, these
We have
guys
the
will all know
fuel.
that. And that's, but
So,
get rid of it.
round numbers, Gary, I'm gonna say total ARPA to balance the budget is between $400,000 and $450,000.
We're up to 500.
250 plus 90.
Including snow and ice?
Yeah, so,
And fuel.
and fuel.
What's in there now? I don't have that. What is in there?
1.2.
1.2.
1.2, I
1.2.
believe.
No, that's okay, it's just that
Yeah.
holistically, you gotta look at the big picture, so you're
Oh, yeah.
You're almost
right.
$500,000
It's the
behind.
first chunk.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, until we get,
Section.
So Leah,
right, but what we have is
Yeah.
one.
Leah,
Yeah.
did you record that? With all those things you said a little while ago, did you record those?
They're on there.
Okay, because Darren's, we're gonna put a ban, I don't disagree with you.
that's a Band-Aid's gonna do it, but we're gonna have the same argument next year, and we're sitting
Right.
here again, so just have it ready. Because unless we do something to change to get more money in, we're in the same boat.
Right.
So are we making a motion to
Yeah,
go
because,
through all the articles?
because we know this is the way we're gonna have to
Stop talking
go.
about
We
it
can
and do what
debate
Skip
it all
said, we
night.
can get
We
home.
really don't have a choice, so if you wanna make a motion to remove those articles, what is it, 30?
All articles with free cash? Is that
Oh,
what
let's
we're
see, we
doing?
have,
So you wanna do the numbers, you wanna do?
Article
yeah,
31.
31.
Article
Your first one you did.
Yeah.
is Seth's is
35.
35. 31, 33, 35.
And how about that too?
Two,
Get rid of 2.
or you wanna just pay a portion of two?
Oh, the one that we had
Just
done
do it.
previously?
You haven't got any money to pay a
Let's do
portion
it.
of too.
Two is
Well,
snow and ice.
Oh, the snow and
Oh, the
ice,
snow
yeah.
and ice,
Portion,
so,
248, 626, 16.
16.
so we're
Yeah,
gonna.
the 116 could help
We're gonna
maybe
re-vote on two and
potentially pay
remove
for
it,
some
but
of
do it with
the-
What I'm
ARPA?
saying, that's what
Yeah.
we got right.
Yeah,
we-
that is.
Tamika, do you know who made
Again,
the
it's also
motion and
a separate-
seconded Article 2?
I did, I made the.
Give me 1 second.
Carol,
Number 12.
Boom, boom.
Article 2 was Skip made the motion, Leah seconded it.
Okay, thank you.
Article 4, make sure you ask the legal representation. We're using free cash to balance the budget. It wasn't worded right last year at the annual town meeting, so it had to be brought back at the fall meeting because we
Oh,
use
right.
free cash. So let's make sure that it's written properly
Article 4?
to balance the municipal budgets.
So I amend my motion to remove Article 2 from the warrant.
And you.
I'll
agree?
amend my second to agree with Skip.
Okay, so Tamika, we're gonna remove 2,
Okay, got it.
all right, and then,
Thirty.
make a motion to remove 31, 33, and 35, I believe.
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Whitman seconds.
Any discussion?
You don't have all
Okay.
that. Right.
That's- And actually, we did do a roll call on the amended, let's do a roll call on 2, I'm sorry.
I agree.
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman, aye.
And Nichols' eye, and then we have a motion to remove 31, 33, and 35, and we have a second, right, from Leah? Roll call,
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman, aye.
and Nichols' eye. All right, and you got that information about making the correction, make sure we take some cash off.
As much as it sucks.
I mean, make sure that we add it.
Couple quick things.
However,
6 months ago.
the lawyer has to put it in because it had to be brought back to the
They
fall
changed
town meeting
how
because
they
it wasn't
use it.
right. So let's get it right the first time, so
So
we don't have
shouldn't
to
it
explain it.
just put free cash as an option for funding?
I don't know what was wrong with it. That's for a lawyer to decide. That's what we pay them for.
I'm sorry, which are?
What kind of thing?
4.
Yeah, we pay them to do it wrong, and then we pay them to do it right.
We pay them to kind of look at stuff.
But they gotta make money somehow.
They kind of look at stuff.
So, should we amend, just throw free cash in there, just to be safe?
What meeting are you saying they corrected it us on?
Last fall.
The fall meeting? Let me
Yeah.
look at it.
Yeah, that would be the only thing is just double check with Lauren to make sure it's written so that we don't have to go back.
But do you think we need to add free cash to our placing it, just to make sure we don't have
I
to
don't
correct
know
it?
what has to be written, but free cash is being used. Everyone's aware
Right.
that free cash is being used. Let's make sure
But
it's
usually
written
we'll
properly.
say available funds or free cash. don't we?
Including free cash, maybe.
Yeah, I can't,
We can say that on the floor, how we need it. It can just gotta be.
all I know is that
The
it
point is
wasn't
get it
written
checked
right,
by
it had to be
legal.
brought back.
Yeah.
I'm
This
just,
is available funds right there.
I'm an accountant.
Just have it insured by legal.
I'm a
So
lawyer.
available funds, you're saying is all encompassing, right, Tom? You think it includes free cash?
We need it.
I think it was bigger issue for the motion, and I don't think it was such an issue for the article.
For the article, okay.
I think, I don't.
All right, we'll get clarification, but. So, I think we're on 32, correct? Clerk?
Yeah, that's the thing.
See if the town will vote to accept the provisions of MGL Chapter 53, 9A to provide that the final date for obtaining blank nomination papers for nominations to town office shall be 48 weekday hours prior to the hour on which the nomination papers are required to be submitted to the registrars of voters for certification or take any action in relation thereto.
32.
Vote,
Page 12.
vote to amend, to place.
Do we have a second?
Whitman seconds.
Any discussion?
What's the purpose of this?
This is for the clerks. I think she's just, the timing of getting the paperwork in for nomination.
So she doesn't want people coming in a day before the papers are due?
Right.
I guess I don't understand why. What difference does that make? She still has to certify it regardless. What difference does it make if it's 48 hours before?
I think, because she needs to meet a certain deadline, so she said they need to be in a certain time so that she can get them to the registrars for
This
certification.
is for obtaining blank nomination papers.
But once you obtain the blank, you gotta fill them out. and bring
I
it
get
back.
it. They still
Right.
are due by the date that it's due.
Right.
But the thing is, what's the purpose of getting it 48 hours in advance? I don't see what the benefit is.
Well, it's even the word, like 48 weekday hours prior to.
Because, so,
Oh, maybe
Monday through
it
Friday.
doesn't read weekdays and it's including weekends. Is this?
Should be business hours. 48 business hours.
I've never heard anybody go 48 weekday hours.
I don't know, that's why I was asking.
We can
Because
always recommend no action.
I think
I'm
this
just
is
asking.
trying to cover it so it doesn't include weekends. Like you said,
2 business
days, but
Should be 2 business days.
I don't know who. I mean, she must
Yeah,
have
because
pulled
it
it out
doesn't
of
include
MGL.
holidays, no
I mean, if somebody,
holidays.
but if somebody.
So Gary,
papers-
could you get the town clerk to write up why we're doing this so that we'll have it when we're making our motion,
I could.
please?
So MGL is written such that it's 40-8 space, week space, day space,
So the
hours.
space before day.
Right, that's MGL
Right.
chapter
Okay,
53
so
that we're
that's,
adopting.
that's where the language came from. She's specifically.
I get it, I'm just trying to figure out why.
But I think it's she's using that verbiage, and I think it's because she doesn't want it to be people to count weekends, is my
But
understanding.
does that mean if something's due on Tuesday at 5 o'clock, I can't go in Tuesday morning and get all my nominations in?
That's
Is that
exactly
it's
what it means.
precluding?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
that's
means you
what-
have to get your blank
Exactly.
nomination papers 48 hours in advance. I'm trying to figure out what the purpose is, what difference does it make? As long as you bring in all your signatures, they still have to certify them, and it's due by whatever time it's due. I'm trying to figure out.
Anita's not on, is she? Sometimes I know she's on the meetings.
So if you could just ask her.
No, Anita's not on.
Okay. Thank
Just so
you.
we know.
If you went and got your papers an hour ahead and you got them filled out and back to her, what
Right.
difference is it?
Right.
Right, that's why I was asking.
No, I know, I agree with
Yeah.
that. Would be
Unless
nice
this
to-
doesn't, unless what it says here, Tommy, doesn't agree with, the MGL chapter 53.
Right,
No.
I don't know, that's what I'm saying, we just,
We'd have to check
just so
that
we
out.
know,
The-
that's,
It
that's,
does. She said it does.
Right, she's reading it
Oh, okay.
specifically from it, so that's
This
what this is.
This is, all it says is, it's, in any city or town which accepts this section, in a city by vote of the city council, subject to the provisions of its charter, and in a town by vote of the town meeting, the following provisions shall apply with respect to nomination papers. And then it reads that the final date for obtaining blank nomination papers.
Yeah.
We
Right,
have
so-
problems
written.
enough getting people to be involved. Do we want to
But
cut
I-
off?
I think she's just trying to get us in line with MGL here, just like.
No,
But it's not, it's a provision
It's a
that can be
provision we
adopted,
can
it
adopt,
doesn't.
but
You're
not
right.
adopt.
Right,
So
So-
right now, we haven't adopted it.
right.
Yeah, so we
I
can just
was-
figure out why.
That's all. Just ask
Oh,
town
But do
clerk
we
why.
even wanna
and that's
place
fine.
it if we don't even understand or we agree with it?
Well,
I'm question,
Why back up is
For-
important. Just saying.
for a town this size that doesn't have a ton of interest, I know oftentimes people come in the morning, go out and get their signatures and turn it in by the end of the day. I don't know, that's why I was wondering if Anita was on to be able to provide some sort of insight.
Right.
I submitted, wasn't there. So,
So I don't even, I know you made a motion to place.
And I seconded it for
Okay.
discussion.
So you want, I'll be more than glad. What's the finance thing? I think we should, I'm asking for your advice. Should
I'm
we
not
not?
finance. The finance committee is all right here. You can ask them.
Should I amend?
well, I think
don't-
what you
I
just
just-
said, let's get
not
the
to-
information
not
from
to put
Anita,
it
so
in.
we understand.
As long as the
Okay.
floor
I mean, in
understands
fairness,
what-
this doesn't seem finance related to me whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean,
And I
We
guess
have to, we
can-
still have to do it
No,
regardless.
I'm
We
just
can
saying,
place
like, I don't
it, doesn't
think
mean
we
you
have
have to have support, so,
take no action, right?
right.
All right.
So
I
we
don't
can make
think
a
we have no
motion, no
opinion
action
on
if we don't feel
No.
comfortable with it. So
Gary.
are you fine with that, Leah, with discussion?
Yeah,
Just a
I-
second.
Gary,
No action. Don't stop.
in some of the stuff I submitted, you and I both know there was descriptions missing, paperwork missing. With this transition between the previous TA and yourself, there's a lot of information that just didn't show up when you guys thankfully slammed this together in a day. So I'm sure somebody thought it through at one point, and it probably just got lost. I mean, I could tell you, I had to rewrite some of my stuff as recently as like, what, today?
This morning.
Yeah, so, only because it got lost in the transition, so I'm sure there's
And that could
something.
have happened, Anita's been on vacation too.
Yeah, so it-
Got back yesterday.
chances are,
But
it was
We'll find out.
All right,
documented, just
so at this
missing.
point,
We're
I
meeting
think
next
we
Thursday.
have the motion to place it, so roll call
Clock eye.
Benoit eye.
Whitman, aye.
and Nichols' eye. Now we're gonna move on to 34 to see if the town will vote to fund with a sum of money from water and sewer retained earnings, a project that recovers the current residuals management system at the water filtration plant and updates operations going forward to comply with state and federal requirements. Do we have a motion to
Motion,
place?
please.
Do we have a second?
Whitman seconds.
Do you have any questions?
Clock
This-
eye.
I don't need it right now, but you'll have the backup for the numbers and everything.
Yeah, we have the estimate and stuff, sure.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay, the roll call?
Benoit eye.
Clock eye.
You already said it, so I.
Whitman, aye.
Okay, I thought I did, but I didn't know if I was cut
Oh my
off.
God.
You were, sorry.
I hope it's not more than $10.
Do I have to read this whole citizen
75.
petition 36?
No, you don't need to read it.
But it's
I mean, we have to
$600,000,
place it anyway. Does anybody
That's it.
object if I don't read the article?
No, I don't object at all.
We have to place, we have to place
have
them
to
as
place
they
them.
were submitted. We don't
So
have a
can I
choice, so.
get a motion to place?
Motion to place citizens petition number
What bills?
item, whatever.
Water and sewer bills.
36,
Okay, this is
37.
retained
36 is what we're at right now.
That's where the retained earnings come from.
Whitman seconds.
And roll call,
Clock eye.
Benoit eye.
Whitman, aye.
and Nichols' eye.
You just,
Motion
Good
to,
luck to the person that was
My
going.
job-
We should buy a do-it-yourself.
Article
one.
35 is another
Truck house.
citizen's petition.
motion to place citizens petition article
Yes.
35.
Wait a minute. Oh yeah, why did we go to 36 to 35?
Nice
Everything-
job, Gary.
What happened?
You didn't do it.
Lyndon, it's 37 on the copy that was sent out yesterday.
35.
There's a second 35.
Yeah, there's,
That's okay. That's
We're
okay.
renumbering everything anyways.
Exactly, doesn't make a
I
difference.
don't have
any.
I don't have a second 35.
I don't either.
I
It's on
do.
page
I do, I
14.
have two on.
Changing the R
I don't have
60.
page numbers.
Anyway,
Yeah,
Oh,
there's
when
two
you
of
go over
them.
here.
Is it really important? Just fix it.
No, but they're all separate, so this is 30,
so Article 36, how about that?
no, we already did 36, it's 37.
This is the one
did
for R
36?
sixty.
Yeah.
For R 60 to.
I didn't hear you read this.
So Article
the last two
37 is a citizen's petition regarding zoning bylaws and zoning maps. Do I have a motion to place?
Place.
Do I have a second?
Whitman seconds.
Roll call,
Clock eye.
Benoit eye.
Whitman, aye.
Nichols' eye. Article 30, this will be 38, is also a citizen's petition regarding
Village
zoning.
Center, yeah.
And do I have a motion to
moved.
place? And do I have a
Whitman
second?
seconds.
Roll call,
Clock eye.
Benoit eye.
Whitman, aye.
and Nichols' eye.
And
38 is for the moderator to choose all his officers and committees,
So
so
moved.
Whitman seconds.
roll call,
Clock eye.
everybody knows anybody, call me.
Nichols' eye.
FinCom.
Gary, could you get copies of the citizens petitions from Anita as well?
Copies of them,
Yes, please.
all of them?
Yes, just
Every
the
single one
citizen,
of them?
every single one of the citizens petitions. It should be on file with the town clerk as it states.
Gary, if it's helpful, they're also posted on the planning board's page.
I'd like to see a copy.
Thank you.
All right, are you guys all set, are we,
Is everybody happy from the finance committee as best as you can be? Okay,
All right, if I can get a motion to,
So moved.
do I have a second?
Whitman seconds.
All right, it is 8:40, if I get roll call,
Clock eye.
Benoit eye.
Whitman, aye.
and Nichols' eye. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gary.
go.
Oh, and so we need to, oh, wait.
I'd like to make a
Sign
motion
the
to
last
adjourn.
page.
Second.
Okay, we gotta do a roll call. Lynn,
Do I have to reopen?
we have a motion to
No,
adjourn.
sign.
Are you in favor?
We'll sign it, because we all voted on it, right?
Yeah, we did vote on it.
You muted, Lynn, could you? Ted? Okay. Darren?
Aye.
Charlotte, aye.
Norwalk, aye. Thank you.
All right.
We're adjourned at 8:41.